Welcome to the Death Taco Podcast. I'm your host, Chris, and today I'm joined by Nick. And today we're here to talk about the 2010 American-British romantic horror film, Let Me In. I feel like to call it romantic horror is a stretch. Or do you kind of see that?
I see it more as a coming-of-age period piece.
Definitely.
But I wouldn't say it's a romance. That's a stretch.
I mean, I guess because they're kids, it kind of, it's a stretch.
There's too many levels to the romance for it just to be called romance, because it's not, like just two kids out here falling in love. It's there's layers.
Yeah, I feel like Stand By Me. Like, you familiar with that old Stephen King movie?
Yes.
I think that's definitely a better comparison. You're watching the protagonist kind of like go through these trials and shit, and like you said, coming of age.
Yeah, it's definitely set with, like, for some reason, movies with kids this age, like the kids this age always have like a really, really tough time. Like kids younger than this age, cute little kids. They usually say quirky, fun things. Kids older than this and they're in high school, they're doing high school party stuff. But this age is such an awkward age, like in general, for when you're growing up. And it's also just an awkward age for movie kids, and it's always them kind of transitioning through this weird stage of your life where things are just changing and you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Where you're definitely kind of being left more to your own vices and shit. And like, there's, like you said, it's that awkward period between, like, I feel like that happens from like 10 to 12.
Mm-hmm. Because you go from being just a little kid who everybody wants to nurture to someone who both wants their own agency in life and also someone who people just in general kind of stop treating you like this little kid at this point, and you kind of have to navigate that on top of all, your body's literally changing. Like,
yes, and also, I mean, like, you're kind of shoved into this place where there's other kids who have developed quicker. So, you get like some kids who stretched out to be like, 6 foot 5'8" or some shit, and you're still stuck at like 4'11".
And this is the age, like, regarding height, like, the girls are, like, taller than you.
Uh-huh.
Like, they always grow first, so the girls are just, like, a little bit bigger than you for, like, a 2-year stretch.
Yeah.
And you're just, like, it's a little intimidating, for real.
I remember, bro, we went to the same school together, a Catholic school. Uh-huh. I remember in, like, 2nd or 4th grade, somewhere in the middle between there, somehow after school, me and these guys were hanging out the whole 2nd or 3rd grade class. There's, like, 9 boys. And somehow we got into like a fight with these 2 7th grade chicks, and they fucked us all up, bro. Like, it just wasn't fair. They were all like fucking 5'9", and we're all like 3 feet tall. And I just remember we got the shit kicked out of us.
Dude, like, there's weight limits, Like, that's why there's weight limits in boxing, because you shouldn't be fighting people bigger than you. And when you're a 3rd grader, a 7th grade girl is much bigger than you.
Yeah, they went in. It was winter, so we had like winter coats, but I remember I got thrown into a wall and it kind of like broke the cushion.
So when I was in middle school, I was like the last kid to get armpit hair.
Uh-huh.
And like this bothered me, dude, because like all the other kids, like, we'd be playing basketball and they'd be wearing tank tops and they had the full armpit hair going, and I was coming in, I had like, swear it was like 3 single individual ones in my left pit, just real skinny, didn't really look good. And I was just embarrassed, dude. So I always wore the t-shirt under the thing. It was just a weird time when you're like that age.
Yeah, man. I was the opposite, dude, because in gym class, I remember I developed hair on my legs like overnight. And I remember I was so uncomfortable about it because, they make you wear shorts. And we like have to sit cross-legged at the start of gym. So I'd sit on the floor just like cross-legged staring at my leg like, you disgust me.
You're just sitting, what's it called? Crisscross applesauce?
Crisscross applesauce, bro. Just staring at my fucking legs because there's nothing else you can look at. And I'm just like, well, what's wrong with you, bro?
Very different ends of the spectrum, but both. See, it just all leads to awkwardness. It doesn't matter what part you're in, if you're the first one to develop, the last one to develop. It's just awkward.
Yeah, man, that age is weird. But so this film was directed by a guy named Matt Reeves. This dude made Cloverfield, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War for the Planet of the Apes, which are fire movies.
Yeah, I mean, he's like a director. You can tell by a lot of the scenes and just framing of the shots in this movie. You're just like, man, this guy gets what like the way you show people things, and it's just is obvious that he's a talented director.
Yeah, there's definitely some specifically unique shots in this. And fun fact, he's also making the new Batman, which I assume is the one with Edward from Twilight.
Yeah, Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson.
He's back.
So on the subject of that, though, how do you generally feel? Because this is a vampire movie, guys.
Spoilers.
Actually, let's sum it up first. So, what's this about? This is about, like we said, a coming of age story about a boy at an awkward age, right?
Yes.
And he meets a new neighbor. Mm-hmm. And this is just kind of about him trying to go through his life while meeting this new friend who has a very dark secret.
Extremely dark.
And that's pretty much what this is about, I would assume.
That's a good way to sum it up. It's about a lonely kid who meets a girl, and he doesn't really get attention from girls that much at school. He kind of has a hard life, and it's about him navigating this friendship with this girl with a dark secret.
Yeah. But yeah, so on that subject though, so vampire movies in general, how do you feel, or how do you feel about fucking vampires in general?
About vampires in general? See, my favorite vampire movies is kind of corny. Or like the really set in like the old times where people are fighting vampires. Like if I'm here want to watch a vampire movie, I'm trying to watch like Van Helsing. I want to see some action. I want to see vampires, doing cool stuff.
Like Underworld and shit.
Yeah, like I want to see a vampire showing off the best of their vampire abilities and just like showing the athleticism, showing the skills,
Like you only want to see Blade, bro, on just repeat.
I don't want to see you hanging around just like wearing leather jackets and being weird for 3 hours.
Yeah, because this is something I was thinking about last night, right? So we're all like in this country, I don't know about the rest of the world, I feel like we're very much so conditioned to know what vampires are at a very young age. Most of the old school Hollywood monsters in general, if you think about it. Like, think there's a Scooby-Doo episode with the vampire, I'm pretty sure. There's Alvin and the Chipmunks meet the Wolfman, Frankenstein, all those things, right?
Yeah, I think that, like, class of horror movie villain, you get the Dracula, the Frankenstein's monster, the mummy, werewolf, that class of old stories has really just been ingrained in our society here in the U.S., and we really, like, at a young age, you get the vampire lore kind of built into your brain. Vampire things. You can kill them with a stake to the heart. That they eat blood. They can't be in the sunlight. All these little rules. And one thing I really like about vampire movies is they all kind of have their own set of rules, and that's a really fun thing to kind of figure out as it goes on.
Mm-hmm. And but I think because of that, I'm kind of desensitized to the trope of the vampire, because like you were saying, like one of the earliest things like I said, like when you win a prize at an arcade, one of the prizes you can win is the fucking vampire teeth.
Yes.
Like, so that's just with us for so fucking long, and I feel like, especially as of late, in my opinion, bro, I think Twilight really fucked up the vampire genre. Like, that was the knife in the heart for those poor bastards.
You think so?
I think so, because I think that's what everybody thinks of when you think of a vampire.
But at the same time, like, what horror movie, vampire movie has been mainstream enough to capture people's attentions or actually scare people? Because there's something about vampires which is kind of weird. Maybe it's because, the Count's a Muppet. Like, not a Muppet, but on Sesame Street. Like, you get vampires from such an early age. Like, you kind of aren't scared of what a vampire is. So, what horror movies has there been that have been mainstream that have kind of taken over that mantle that's not Twilight? Because Twilight's the only big kind of movie that you see a vampire in.
And I also thought of that. And there are a couple that are solid, like, horror films, that illustrate what the capabilities of a horror vampire movie could be. There's like 30 Days of Night. Not sure if you've seen that.
I have not seen that.
It's about vampires in Alaska. There's fucking 30 days where the sun doesn't come up and shit.
I have heard of this movie. I've seen parts of it, and it seemed cool.
There's Fright Night. Mm-hmm. There's a remake that I really liked, but so I mean, it's possible to be done, but like you said, those aren't bigger than Twilight, bro. Twilight's the fucking overarching like dome that's come over the world of vampires, I feel.
They made 7 of them.
Exactly.
Kids had folders with vampires on them, like taken to school, like pink little ones. Like you might be right that they ruined the whole genre of vampires.
Like they turned vampires into a meme, bro. Everybody's like, oh, they fucking glitter and shit in the sunlight. Like,
but you think the vampires need to make a comeback? We need a slew of vampire movies, and it just needs to happen.
I would like to see it, but even then, like I said, me personally, like I don't get excited. Like if somebody's like, oh, there's vampires in this, I'm like, oh, I kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, all right, well, we know the rules, the gist of the rules.
Vampires to me are kind of like watching Superman movies. Superman movies, just like this dude can take a bullet to the eye and like he's cool. Like what else is there? Like a vampire is kind of like that. He's like he can't die, he can't go in the sun.
I never thought about that.
I get it.
You're right, because like at some point you're like, someone's gonna put like kryptonite in Superman's ass. It's guaranteed in this movie.
Like nope, he evaded it again. And then when they kill him, he's like, I'm alive now. Like okay, I guess that's just how things work.
But no, so also, I really like the actors in this motherfucker.
I do too. So her name is Chloe Moretz.
Chloe Grace Moretz.
And then the dad, Richard Jenkins, is an all-time like, oh, that dude's in this movie. Like
the guy whose name you don't know, but you've seen him in movies.
Yeah, he is. For those of you who don't know, he's the dad from Step Brothers. He plays one of the people in the command center in the Cabin in the Woods. Mm-hmm. He just has a lot of cool roles where he's in good movies, but doesn't really have a big part necessarily.
No, but he's like definitely a memorable character.
Very good face expressions. I love it. He was awesome in this movie.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I can't think of the kid's name, the actor, the little boy.
I don't think he's really done anything else. So
he was in the Planet of the Apes.
The little kid was, so the director just loves this. His name's Cody Smith McPhee.
Like he's there's certain people that can like really sell a role as like an outcast, and that kid, you know, he's definitely like that. He looks like the little emo kid.
Yeah, I mean, when you saw him and like, you just knew the kid got bullied at school. You know, like he's someone like if he was like, oh, like my friend's like nephew, like. He's with me today, and you're just like, oh, this kid gets bullied.
Yeah, somebody's definitely fucking with this kid.
Like, he doesn't have a good life. Like, he's just, like, too pale. He's just not the right looking, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And even the female, Chloe Grace, she sells that part also, which she played in the Carrie remake.
I didn't see that, but she played Carrie?
Yeah, she plays Carrie.
Oh, okay.
And she was also in the Kick-Ass movies.
I remember her from those. She is, like, interesting to me because she, like... her features, like her face, like every single like part of it is so like over exaggerated. Like she has just like big, huge features, and so anything that she does, like while she's acting, like just really comes across. Mm-hmm. And so she's just really like fun actress to watch because she just reading her and how she behaves is really great. It's amazing.
She definitely, for me, like there's certain females that can sell like being a badass. Mm-hmm. She does it, bro.
Yeah, especially in Kick-Ass. She really sold me on being that little, like, superhero.
Because I always, on the contrary to that, like, have you seen these movies called Divergent?
Yes, yes.
I didn't believe that chick, like, at all.
Yeah, like, some people don't have the, like, tough person aspect. You know who, like, a guy version of this is Brendan Fraser for me, dude. Mm-hmm. Like, Brendan Fraser, like, I would watch this dude if we had to fight. I'm taking him out. He ain't beating people up in Egypt, bro. Like, I'm putting him on his ass. Like,
bro, isn't Brendan Fraser like a mountain though? He looks big as fuck.
Is he that big? See, they sell this to you, but like he just doesn't look coordinated to me. I need like someone who looks like they can fight.
Because there's this old movie called Airheads that he's in with Steve Buscemi. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
It's called Airheads, and they play like in a rock band, and he looks like two Steve Buscemi's put together.
Steve Buscemi's like a snake.
I know he's really tiny, but you know what I'm saying? He's just like, you can just see right next to him like, oh, that's a big motherfucker.
Okay, maybe not. Maybe I need to look up.
But I get what he's saying. He's more like goofy than like serious.
Yeah, he's just someone who you don't believe as like someone who's tough and badass. But you're right about this actress. She really portrays that in all the movies I've seen her in.
Mm-hmm. I always related to like the woman from Alien, Sigourney Weaver.
Oh,
I believe her is a bad motherfucker. Even Jamie Lee Curtis.
Definitely Jamie Lee Curtis and all like her like Scream films. Like she's just like, not like the actual Scream films, but I'm just like, you know,
like the Scream Queen.
Yeah, the Scream Queen. She like plays that well. She seems like someone who has the gumption to get out of the situation. You know, some people don't look like they can survive like a horror film situation, but she just kind of has it. Like she's not like big, but she's just a little thicker. You know, like she looks a little stronger than some of like your typical like Hollywood actresses. Like she looks like she could like move. She has some athleticism to them. So
Like she can hold her own.
yeah.
But outside of that, though, so we covered the vampires, we covered the actors. Is there anywhere else you think we can go before we really get into this?
I'm ready to hop in.
Right on then, guys. So we're going to go ahead and break down this film. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Come back to this part. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and fuck up Let Me In. So this starts with like a title, with like a credit scene, or not credit, like, yeah, title card. It says Los Alamos, New Mexico, 1983 in March. And it's fucking snowing, right?
Yeah, so immediately I was not thrown off, but I was like questioning my knowledge of the country. You know,
Yeah,
like
that's really far south.
I was like, that's New Mexico. It has Mexico in it. That's south. Los Alamos. That doesn't sound like a place that gets snowy.
No, because it
Yeah.
never snows in Cali, right?
No, it doesn't. Like it doesn't snow in March, but there's places in New Mexico that maybe border Utah and are closer to the mountains. But I didn't know that was the case in March. Do you think maybe like the guy like researched it and went back to like a snowy like
A specific year or something?
It could have been that, but also maybe I'm just overthinking that, and he just picked some random year.
Possibly. Maybe he'd be like, it'd be cool if this scene would look cool if we added some snow in post-production.
Some snow in post.
Because I even put that down in my notes. It just says, it snows in fucking New Mexico. But no, so we start with like an ambulance driving down a desolate area. It looks like it'd be a desert, I'm assuming, but there's snow. And we see like a burn victim struggling in an ambulance. And like we kind of hear exposition from the driver, you know, like kind of in the background as he's yelling into a radio.
Dude, I loved that. Like intro, like you don't hear anyone talk really. You kind of hear some muffled like people talking in the ambulance, just normal like doctor lingo kind of being thrown around. And then all of a sudden you hear over the radio the ambulance driver talking to the hospital, I'm assuming, the admissions team or however they do it. And he's saying exactly what's happening and giving you like the rundown, the intro, and throwing you right in and giving you the setup for the whole movie.
Yeah, because isn't he saying something like burn victim? You just hear like little tidbits. Acid, possibly self-inflicted.
Yeah, you just get a whole bunch of little stuff, and it's just like, okay, I am 100% in on this right now.
And real shit, like if you weren't doing what we're doing right now, you'd glaze over all of that.
Yeah, because it happens in like a 30-second span.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously that comes into play later in the movie, but like from this part, like it's literally just background noise. Like you're like, all right, there's somebody struggling in an ambulance. Which, like you said, is a cool effect.
It was something that I hadn't seen in a movie before, I don't think, at least. And I think it was awesome how he did it and kind of just led you into what was going to happen. A little bit overhyped me for the level of movie it was going to be. I thought we were going to hit the ground running and kind of just take off from there. But it really kind of just, you know, slows down a little bit after these couple scenes.
Yeah, something else we didn't talk about. This is definitely an uncomfortable movie.
Uncomfortable how?
A lot of it wants to make you uncomfortable, I feel.
I didn't feel that, but...
Like, kind of like, because as you're watching, you know, the main character's name is Owen. You're watching his struggles. There's a lot of, like, really awkward, uncomfortable moments, I feel, for him.
Yeah, there's like some... I would call that more like sad in a way. Like, it just kind of is like a little dark and like depressing. It didn't make me feel discomfort, like an awkwardness in that way.
We'll get to the parts when we get to the parts.
Gotcha.
So, all right, so this guy, he gets to the hospital, this burned up dude. And he gets questioned by some type of detective or some shit, right? Mm-hmm. So we were talking, the detective's like grilling the fucking guy as he's all burnt up and shit, right?
Yeah, a little thing before, when he goes in there, the nurse tells the detective that the guy who's burned can't talk because he burned himself so bad. So that's kind of a vital piece of information. And then it's also like very like heavily like throwing 1980s stuff at you. There's like Reagan, he's talking on the screen about some random stuff. And then like the nurse looks like, you know, like a cartoonish like 80s nurse.
Yeah, she's got like the whole, like the Halloween costume of the nurse.
And then another thing I realized, did you see that ventilator?
No.
So they show the ventilator that's like keeping him alive. That shit looked like what's the Tejano instrument that they use? The one that
Fucking accordion
it
thing?
looked like an accordion going up and down. I was like, man, if that was the thing that kept us alive from the virus right now, like it'd be a lot worse.
Like it looks like the cartoon version of what a ventilator should be.
I was like, is that thing supposed to keep him alive? Medicine in the 80s
man.
was not it.
Not at all. But so it was confusing from the get go because the cop's like talking to the dude and he's like, just let me know now. Do you worship Satan, sir? Do you love the devil? Are you in a cult? And it's kind of like, where does this come from?
It made sense after you know that. I don't know if this is a spoiler for this part yet, but after you know that there's a time jump backwards coming. So when you figure that out, you kind of like, oh, I'm going to get some more information. But at that time, I thought I was getting jumped right into the middle of the situation and we're going to go in blind with no background or anything. Mm-hmm. So I was like very like much like paying attention to every detail, thinking that I had to figure out what it was early on.
But yeah, low key, like you said, I guess we don't figure out why that happens until more towards the endish middle.
Yeah, the middle of the movie.
And so he ends up just kind of, does the nurse call him that she has a phone call?
Yeah, the nurse in the main lobby has a phone call and she calls him out there to talk to him.
And we kind of, once again, we're hearing this like his background noise. It's not the main focus. He's like, a little girl? How little? His daughter? In the lobby? And it's like random. Like it doesn't mean anything to us at this point, right?
Nothing. Like they're dropping all these clues that they're going to kind of go back to, but you just have no clue. You're in a weird space at this movie because you're scared. You don't know if something's going to happen. Something's going to jump out. You don't know what it is going on because to tell you the truth, I didn't look up the movie or watch the trailer. I just went in cold. So I didn't even know this was a vampire movie at this point.
Ah, okay. Which is good, man. I kind of prefer that.
Yeah.
It's cool. I like I said, I love people's reactions to shit like this. And, so he ends up hearing a nurse scream and he goes back to the room and the burn victim guys jumped out the window.
Ooh, chilling.
And, so he's looking over the edge. He eventually goes downstairs. And that's the part, like you said, where he's walking out the door. We see on the reflection on the glass, Reagan's talking. So they're again pumping you with 80s shit.
Yeah, there's like, hey, just so in case you forgot, it's the 80s.
What's a movie that does that really bad? Is it It?
It, like the newer one?
Have you seen that?
The one where they're kids, it's kind of bad. Like every single thing is just like a reference to like old stuff. Stranger Thing really annoys me because it does that. It's like, hey guys, 80s.
Is it 80s or 90s in that one?
Stranger Things, I think it's 80s because they have like the neon and like people in, like,
Star Wars and shit.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Oh, and also as the detective's like leaving the room, the burn victim's like has a notepad because he left him a notepad since he can't talk. That's why he's talking to him.
Yes.
And all the dude writes on it is, "I'm sorry, Abby."
Ooh, chilling. Again, you don't know anything about like what is going on, and you don't know why the detective's there questioning him. You don't know what events led up to this, and all you see on this dude's notepad is, "I am sorry, Abby," and he killed himself right after that.
Mm-hmm. So it definitely leaves you very much in suspense. Like, all right, you still have no idea what the fuck's happening. And so after this, we get another title card, and it says 2 weeks earlier.
Yes.
And as soon as you see that, you're like, all right, they're going to explain how we got to this point, clearly. And we see a little boy sitting in a playground. Was that a playground? Or was that just like a weird sculpture in like the courtyard of an apartment complex?
I think it was a playground, but
it was like monkey bars, right?
Yeah, but it was like covered completely in snow in New Mexico.
Yes.
But it was a very weird structure. It like they didn't put much thought in like who was going to play here or what kind of games kids could play on this thing.
Yeah, like this kid Owen definitely just used it as a bench. He just sat on it.
It was a glorified bench. There was no other kids in this apartment at all.
No, they never played on it, so it could have been anything. But I mean, I guess it didn't bother me, but it was something that I questioned.
Right before this, right before they do the jump to the 2 weeks prior, there's like a scene that's just like the detective just like slowly looking out the window like at the person who died, and like it's like a 3 or 4 minute scene that's just like kind of unnecessary in my mind. I think that this movie was like super long, and there's just some parts where
They held on to a shot a little too long.
like a little bit too long in like 5 or 6 different places where this movie could have used a nice little trim.
You know, I thought about that too. like I think the movie's runtime is only an hour and 30, right? Something like that, or hour and 40.
It was about that, yes.
But like you said, I feel like it could have been a lot shorter.
Like the story, like a lot happens in the story, but at the same time, not a lot happens in the story, and they kind of use a couple of scenes that are just filler and drag it on.
Yeah, kind of like oh fuck it, we'll get to it. So this kid's like he's just sitting outside talking to himself, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like, and it's nighttime. It's dark out, correct?
Yeah.
So I think right off the bat, we're kind of like given this impression like this kid's a loner.
Definitely. You immediately kind of are introduced, and just by the way the kid looks and the makeup they put on him and just the way the actor kind of portrayed himself, you just knew immediately what kind of life this kid was living. It was a lonely life. He probably had problems with his parents just from inferring just by seeing him. He seemed like a divorced kid of the 80s, which you come to find out that he might or not be like a separated family. You don't really know the details, but yeah, you know about this kid right from the get.
All right. And just like to jump just a little bit ahead. So his mom calls him into from the courtyard from her apartment. Mm-hmm. He goes inside. They're sitting at a dinner table. His mom's like doing a prayer. She gets a phone call. And again, this is like background noise. We get into an argument with the dad, this kid's dad. Mm-hmm. And you can clearly tell like they're going through some type of divorce or separation or some shit. And they're like fighting and cursing and stuff.
This is like back when like you just had the phone on the wall in the middle of the room, and if you're having any kind of conversation, like everybody just like heard about it.
Yeah, there's no privacy in this time period.
You can't take it to your room. Like you just like, I'll take it here, I guess.
And he's also, after this, he's cleaning the dishes, and his mom's like crying on the couch. And I just wanted to get that all out of the way because, like we were saying, we get an idea of what this kid's life is like immediately.
So quickly. So like they want to show you the mom. She's also wine at dinner, wine while she's crying. They want to show you immediately that she is kind of an absentee mother, a little bit of a drunk maybe. And after this, we see mom like for like maybe 2 more minutes in the whole movie.
Yeah, I think they definitely want to drill it in that like this kid's on his own practically. He's very much left to his own vices.
Definitely. Owen don't have nobody.
And like how you said how it's awkward. I think for me, I felt that a lot. Like I felt like because my parents both worked all the time. It was just me and my sister, you know, and she was kind of doing her own thing most of the time. And I didn't go out a lot because my parents were always busy, dude. So I felt like as a very isolated kid. So I really kind of like related to like this like whole loner mentality, you know?
Yeah. So at that age, I was lucky to have some neighbors that I just like hung out with every day, and I didn't really have that time where I was like by myself. So I can see at that age, if you're trying to kill like 6 or 7 hours just by yourself, like it'd be a lot more boring than doing it with like a group of kids.
Yeah, it definitely. But I also feel like that that type of like growing up, like it gives you a different type of mentality. Like someone described it to me one time as like, they're like, oh, you live inside your head a lot, right? So you have like a different way of thinking of shit. And I feel like that's kind of what's benefited me to do this, but that just parallels for me. I paralleled something to Owen. Obviously not to the dark extent this motherfucker is going through. But like, I guess that's why at first I had said this was kind of like, I had uncomfortable moments because I could like see like, all right, I kind of felt some of that shit he was going through.
I can see that. I can see that since I guess I didn't really relate to this kid very much, that none of it made me uncomfortable. It just made me sad. And if you had some kind of parallel in your life that kind of mirrored a little bit what the kid was going through, then that could be kind of hard to watch.
Yeah. Like, because I was, you know, whenever you see him by himself all the time and shit, I'm like, oh, I felt that.
Do you go sit on the weird bench outside?
Yeah, dude. Because, like, you don't know how to socialize. I didn't know how to socialize that well as a kid. Because, like you said, you had neighborhood friends. I didn't have that. As soon as I left school, bro, I was on an island.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Because I lived in a very questionable neighborhood.
I remember that.
But yeah, so, and as he's cleaning these dishes though, bro, as his mom's crying, he eyeballs a fucking knife.
First instance of this kid having like knife issues. Like, like, do you have those friends in like grade school that are just like, hey man, do you want to come see like this knife I got?
Yeah.
And you're just like, you got a knife? He's like, yeah, dude, I got a knife. And you're just like, what? Like, why do you have a knife? And there's just some kids that, have the affinity for, I don't know if it's violence or just they like knives. Probably violence.
A little bit of both. Bro, I knew this kid who used to always like walk me over to the air conditioning unit in elementary school. And he would always find worms. And he'd be like, hey, watch me drop this worm into the fucking air conditioning unit. And then after he'd do it, bro, he'd draw pictures of the worm after the fact. And he'd name it. And he'd put like a bow tie and a top hat on it.
Is that dude like all right now? Do you know?
I think he's okay. I think he sells cars.
Do you remember this could really weird tangent. Do you remember like when you're little when you got like your first like pocket knife or something from like your grandpa or something like that, or just like some random like old person gave you like a pocket knife and you felt like you're about to go in there and like you felt like you're just invincible after you had it?
I got my first pocket knife when I was like 20 something. And yes.
I did.
I got that way with Nerf guns because my parents never bought me a lot of like Nerf guns and shit growing up. So whenever I'd get them bad boys, dude, I'm like, I'm about to fuck some dudes up.
You just like perch up in a tree,
just keep it like tucked into the waistband and stuff. But no, so after Owen eyeballs this knife, we get a cut to him in his bedroom, and he's wearing a mask, and he's shirtless, staring into a mirror, and he just keeps saying, "You scared, little girl? Are you scared?" And as soon as you see that, I immediately disconnected from. I was like, all right, I never did that. And I was like, there might be something a little off with this guy.
Definitely a pre-existing conditions there. Like the movie definitely, like the actions and stuff that happened in the movie, the events of it definitely scar and change this kid. But if none of that happened, he'd still grown up and had some issues of his own, Like it's not like he was the best off mentally from the get.
Yeah, but I mean, once again, I could unfortunately parallel to this kid in that part. Not because I did that, but because like I'm into horror movies. That's why I do a fucking horror movie podcast. So when I was a kid, like that age, actually a little bit younger, like between 5 to 10, I remember I used to just draw pictures, right, of like, I'd be drawing what I saw in horror movies. So it'd be scenes of like a house, like people draw houses with the sun and shit, right? I'm drawing the motherfuckers at night with some dude holding a knife like in one of the windows.
Bro, if you was my kid, you might be like, we might have to lock the door at night.
Like I always had that like off-colored like way of thinking.
Did you ever have like the moment when like you drew something like this for school and like your mother got it back, or they had like a parent-teacher conference with your mom and they like were like, Chris is drawing these disturbing images?
I never did it at school, but I do it at home. And I remember I'd be proud of it and I'd show my parents. And at one point they were like, you got to stop drawing shit like this. And I was like, okay. Because like I'd put like blood on the knife and shit. And they're like, what the fuck are you doing?
No, I would have taken your crayons, bro. The Crayolas would have been mine.
You took all the reds.
Yeah, I'm like, no, you don't get red anymore.
No, but yeah. So I mean, every kid goes through these awkward phases, but we learn to find out why he does this. It's not because of movies; it's because of personal experiences we'll learn from later.
Yeah. So I don't me describe this scene real quick. The telescope scene.
Go for it.
So Owen apparently has a telescope in his room, and it seems like this telescope gets a lot of use. He is looking around his apartment complex, and I think just because he is so lonely that he is just kind of looking at different versions of life and what it could be. So for a second, he's spying on his neighbor who has a gym in his living room and is lifting weights, and he's watching him do his thing. Then he pans over and notices a couple that lives next door are kind of, about to get it on. So they're in the room. She starts taking her clothes off. We see some chests. And then she looks up and makes eyes with the telescope, which happens in every telescope movie.
Yeah.
You know, you get that thing where like the guy like just looks at the camera like immediately, and then the person in the telescope's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
Like there's so many different versions of that. We got Disturbia, very very much a telescope movie, but it's binoculars, but it's still the same thing. That's also happened in Bad Boys 1 when they're like spying on like the bad guy, and he just like turns and like waves at him.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's just a very like Hollywood trope of like someone like. If someone's looking through a telescope, someone's bound to just look back at them and be like, "I see you, dude. Being a weirdo."
Yeah, I would never catch someone spying on me with a telescope, bro.
You never catch anybody?
I would never. I don't like pay attention enough to my surroundings to be like, "Oh, we got him." Like, you know what I'm saying, dude? Like, we could have this entire conversation for 3 hours. There could be a dude out this window just staring at us with binoculars, like on a lawn chair. I just wouldn't catch it. Do you have like that, like what's it called? Do you just have that sense to know the shit like that?
Yeah, I'm like very like I like can kind of I think it's because I played sports a lot growing up and kind of had to know like just like what's around me was like kind of really important. So just like every like so often I'll be in my house and like see like a shadow or like even sometimes I'll walk and see like myself in the mirror and that makes like a weird reflection and like I'm like heads turning all the time. I'm like a bird, you know, when birds be walking on the ground, there's like kind of clucking, but you know, their eyes up looking for the predators.
Yeah, yeah. I think I have this misfortune, right? Because like I've always felt like a bigger dude, right?
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, there's very few things that I feel that could actually hurt me. Like that's literally my mindset, bro. Like I don't watch out for practically anything just because of that.
I don't gotta be scared of nothing.
Pretty much. That's my mentality, unfortunately. Like if I walk into something, I'm probably gonna crush it.
You're just like Godzilla, just walking around.
Very much so. My 5'8" frame.
Wide though.
I know, but so yeah, and also when he, like you said, the moments of where they kind of linger on shots slightly too long. This could be one of those.
I don't know if we needed that scene at all.
Where the neighbor, like, I wonder, that is weird. Because they don't address, or I guess maybe it is, because that's kind of where he's getting his romantic ideas from, is from watching this couple, possibly.
Yeah, I guess you kind of get into his headspace of being a 12-year-old kid who's kind of just, you know, thinking about sex for the first time in like an adult way.
Yeah.
And so maybe that they wanted just to highlight that he was going through that, but also, I mean, so the lady catches him, and then she closed her blinds, so you know that she caught him. So he's like embarrassed, but nothing really comes out of that for the rest of the movie.
No, but I mean, we did get a glorious titty shot.
Just one, a solo.
Just one, but it was all you needed, really. It was perfect. And you just glazed over that, and I couldn't let it go. So this is a very big part of this show, man. Okay, when nudity happens, we let you know.
We let you know. We give.
I'm gonna start timestamping the motherfuckers for you guys.
It just like flashes on the screen, like this part of the movie.
Big fucking numbers, bro.
Yeah.
Nah, so yeah, like you said, the neighbors catch him, they close the blinds, and he's still got his telescope, and we see the little girl for the first time and an old man like carrying boxes, like if they're moving in, right?
Yeah, that's the first time we see him. It's after he's already done this embarrassing thing,
and
he's
it's
still
nighttime. looking
looking out the telescope for some reason. I would have gave it up for the night, honestly.
Yeah,
but
you think you'd get a little bit more like camouflage at it, but
anything, it's not like pointing a giant telescope at you. So yeah, he sees the little girl and who he assumes is her dad walking in. It looks like they're moving in, like,
and he's carrying a giant crate,
a giant crate,
like a trunk or a crate.
Huge. Do you notice immediately that she's barefoot?
Yes,
You did?
Actually, I saw him like look down at her legs, and I saw I thought it was shorts, and also I kind of assumed, I was like, is she wearing shoes? So you can't tell for sure at that moment. They barely show the feet.
But then they keep on showing, he keeps looking because he's interested. Another little girl's moving in next door, and then you see that she is in fact barefoot, which is strange. She got the messy feet. She got the Frodo's down there.
Yeah, she's got that like hippie feet.
The Hobbit hippie feet. They don't have any hair on it, but they're bigger than they should be. Mm-hmm. You know? Like when you got a puppy, like a little dog, like, and they got like huge feet compared to their bodies, like those
Yeah.
But not cute like a puppy.
Nah.
These feet were gross.
They were a little busted. So the next morning, Owen investigates the girl's footprints in the snow, and he makes eye contact with the neighbor whose boob he saw the night before.
Just a weird scene to throw in.
That was random. We're just going to name off all the scenes, like, could have done without.
Like, chop it.
And so the next scene we go to, though, is Owen is in school. And he keeps making eye contact with the angriest looking kid I've ever seen in a film, bro.
On a scale of like 1 to Joffrey Baratheon, he's a pretty, like, he just has like that look of like some kid that you would hate.
Like that scowl, bro.
Yeah, he just has that like little like kid look. He has like a douchey haircut. There's just, I knew like if I went to school with this kid, I would hate this kid so much. I would. Mm-hmm. And they did a really good job of just presenting that like immediately. Like, this kid sucks.
Very much so. He's definitely got that like asshole characteristic down.
Definitely.
And so then we go to his gym class, I'm assuming, because they have a pool.
Uh-huh.
So every day in this school in New Mexico apparently is pool day.
Every single day, and sometimes at night, which comes into play later, apparently.
Yeah. And he's watching the angry kid bully some girl in a pool.
He's just being a dick for no reason.
And Owen's sitting on the sidelines, right? He's not even in trunks or anything, right?
No, I think he may, like, they're kind of inferring that he has some kind of problem showing his body because he's a little tiny little boy.
Yeah. And he's still continually making eye contact with his fucking bully. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like to say, I guess, that he just has that look like he gets picked on. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of just assuming, like, all right, maybe he's already had bad interactions with this kid beforehand, do you think? Well, I mean, definitely. Obviously he has because he does the thing with the knife, so.
Definitely. This dude, like, it's like some people, I think, that get bullied. I'm not over here victim blaming, bro. But, you know, some people that get bullied just, like, they start off, like, getting shit on, and they just take it so hard that the bully kind of preys on it. So I think that they're kind of trying to show you that he's just so worried constantly about being bullied. That might be one of the factors of why this kid's just kind of after him. He's like, oh, he's
an easy target.
Oh, such an easy target.
Yeah, there's definitely some moments where Owen bitches out hard.
So hard.
But, so he's making eye contact with his bully the whole time, kind of drawing the fucking kid in. It's almost like, hey, dude, when is it my turn? So this bully, he has a couple boys with him, right? He's got a little squad.
He's got the little 3-piece squad, you know.
They follow Owen to the locker room. And how does that go?
They're in the locker room, and this kid puts him down. And movie wedgies, they don't happen very often, but when they do happen, they're never good. Like, they always just give people the most vicious wedgie you've ever seen in your life. Like, he's about to break his underwear coming out of his pants, dude. Like, it was insane. And every time I watch it, I can't help but laugh. It's sad. It's something maybe wrong with me, but I just laugh every time I see some kid get just viciously wedgied. But
yeah. Did you ever see this show on Netflix called 13 Reasons Why?
I never watched it, but
my girl talked me into watching it. And it's got one of the most vicious bullying scenes that I've ever seen in my fucking life. And it happens in a restroom. And they're like, you know, high school age kids. Uh-huh. And there's a part where the bullies put a broomstick up a kid's ass.
Ooh, that's a whole different level than just
and it's literally like this kid's asshole's bleeding and shit for like the rest of the season.
Oh my god.
And but anyways, so whenever like I see these scenes now, I like my fucking dome just like goes to that immediately. I'm like, don't put a broomstick up his ass, please. And you know, you just feel pain for like the kid that's getting picked on, man.
It's super disheartening to see it, especially because you know that like kids are like just getting picked on viciously every single day in school, like everywhere.
Were you ever the kid who was like, did you ever have to stand up for somebody? Did that ever happen?
Unfortunately, I was not an enabler. But I didn't step in for the kids, bro. I didn't either. I never really had a friend that was like really close that got bullied. But I feel like if I maybe developed friends with like a kid that had that, maybe I would have had to. But kind of just let it happen, bro.
Yeah, like you've definitely. I wonder if that's a culture thing, because you know, as Mexican people, it's kind of like when you see some shit, it's kind of like if it's not your business.
I think you're right. It had part of it to do with that, and obviously you didn't want to go tell on the kid, so you just kind of had to
Like, one, you're not a snitch. Two, you're not gonna go and step in someone else's shit.
It's not my business. Probably was, but nah. There's only like 7 kids in like our like, oh, you kill asses too.
Yeah, it's just well.
I could have been better as a child.
There was room for improvement, man. But so as this kid's getting wedgied, the bully's telling him, "Hey, little girl." Doesn't he keep just calling him little girl?
Yeah, he like really, really harped on little girl, which
is why he was doing the thing in the mirror with the knife. He's kind of just parroting what this kid was telling him.
Dude, I didn't even realize that.
You didn't?
No, I didn't realize, because I think he only does that with the knife, like at the beginning, the little girl part.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't pick up on that. Wow.
And it's weird how it kind of like it has a trickle effect, as we learn, later on in the movie.
Yeah.
And so the next scene is Owen's at an arcade and he buys candy and another knife at an arcade. He needs more knives. Oh, wait, because the first one was just a standard kitchen knife.
Yeah,
but he finally bought
he
bought a Switch, right?
Yeah. And apparently he's been robbing his mom blind all this time.
We haven't seen that yet. We just know that he has a 20 to spare, because he doesn't do that until later on when he takes the girl out.
No, the first time when she yells down to him, she's like, "Did you get money out of my purse?" She says it like kind of at the back end of it.
No shit, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah,
like you said, there's a lot of shit that happens that you're not necessarily paying attention to. So yeah, so he swipes the money out of his mom's purse, I guess. Nah, it never happened in my house, bro. I was terrified of my mother.
I would never. I would. Just wouldn't happen. Like I'm not saying I wouldn't steal from anybody, but my mother.
Your mother in particular, bro.
Out of her purse after she got back from work. No.
Listen, son. There is like 2 people on this entire planet that could put hands on you as a child. Why would you?
Why would you play with them?
Why would you play with the one person who can legally just fuck your whole world up? I'm good.
So my parents are like divorced or split up. But if my mom like found out at like 2 a.m. that I like stole from her, there would be a call made and my dad would be on the way.
Yeah.
He'd be in the car like I had to come kick his ass.
Nah, dude. My house, my mom was the one who did the damage.
Bro.
Yeah, my dad was definitely like the cooler head in these situations. But it works out because as a woman, bro, you're obviously both of our mothers are tiny as shit, right?
Yeah. About the same height.
They're 5 feet, bro. Me and you're 6 foot. I'm like 5 something.
Uh-huh.
5. And you know what I'm saying? You respect the shit out of your mother, bro.
You just have to. I could pick up my mom and throw her, but like I would never ever like do any damage to her, especially not stealing. I feel like it'd be worse to steal from her.
Right. And I don't know, that's just reflective. You can't say of a whole culture, because I don't want to throw white people under the bus. You guys are solid, man. Just this particular kid, obviously, you know what I'm saying? We don't know where his values lie. He does that thing again. This threw me off because I have it word for word. It says, he does the "Are you scared, little girl" thing to a tree at night.
He just like sticks it.
He does that thing again, bro. Now he's like, "You scared, little girl?" to a tree at night, like outside again in the courtyard, right?
Yeah, he's just playing with it like literally like my first thought was like, you're ruining your knife. You just got it. You're just gonna try to stab a tree. Like
I thought he was gonna break it too, bro.
Immediately thought that.
And so as he's doing this, he doesn't notice that his new neighbor, the little girl, is behind him sitting on the monkey bars or whatever, right?
Yeah, she just covertly got there, and you immediately know something's wrong with this girl. Like there's no like tiptoeing around it. Like the movie we did last week, the Visit, is kind of like the slow build into knowing like, I guess like who the other is, because I wouldn't say the villain in this case per se, but you know that something's immediately wrong with her. You're like, okay, this girl ain't like a normal girl. She's standing outside barefoot, just in the snow
with a hood.
Strange. Yeah,
and she's kind of like watching him, and she's like, "What are you doing, you creepy fuck?" Because, I mean, it's justifiable, bro. He's, like, stabbing a tree.
Don't stab trees.
And she tells him right off the bat, the second they start conversing, she's like, we can't be friends.
She made it very clear, but then she was just like, hey.
Then she still kind of, like, tiptoes around it, though, right?
Yeah, she was, like, still hanging out with him. Like, she didn't really... She had a rule, but didn't really live by it.
No. I think that changes, though. That progresses with her situation.
Yes, because things are changing in her life as well.
Yes, and when he asks why, she says it's just the way it is. And then Owen tries to retort. He's like, Who said I want to be your friend?
Oh, he knew. I mean, yeah, that was desperation, dude.
I was just trying to save face, bro.
It's like if you ask a girl out, be like, "Oh, you're not my type." Oh, you're not really my type either. Like, then why'd you ask me out in the first place?
I was just testing you.
Testing you.
See how desperate you really are.
Okay, so she goes back upstairs, right, and he stays outside.
Eating jerky.
And then this is when things get really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So what you think of until this moment as her dad, he comes outside, he's smoking a cigarette, I think.
And he has like a trash bag with him or some shit, right?
Yes, and he sees Owen, immediately gets kind of disheveled, scared, walks away, he's gone.
Yeah.
So you follow his character into a parking lot where he is sitting and waiting, and this is one of the cooler shots of the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Because you see the full like 80s themed grocery store and him just standing there in the dark, and it kind of leads to a crazy scene.
Yeah, and then like you see what is a woman, right?
It's a kid.
Is it a kid?
It's a guy. Like
Is it a guy?
Yeah, he's like, they say he's a recent graduate of the school.
I see. I couldn't gather that. He had like a curly brownish hair, right?
Yeah.
Throws me off, man.
I didn't know.
It happens, but he's getting in. It shows him pull up to the grocery store, and then we see this old man break into his car, right?
Yes.
And then we don't see actually what he does. We just see the guy come back into his car, and then we get this over the head shot, right, of the guy lying down in his back seat.
We get the
shot where he sits up.
Yeah, so the shot we get is behind the guy who got back in his car, just done shopping, and it's pointing straight out, like out of the front windshield. So you see his silhouette at the back of his head, and him just driving down the road. And you get you found out the dad, he is in the car because his silhouette comes up and gets and sits right behind the kid that's driving.
Mm-hmm. And he's got a trash bag over his head with the eyes cut out, and it was fucking glorious.
It was there's like so many iterations of like scary movie masks, and I don't think I'd seen that before.
It was definitely reminiscent of old Friday the 13th when Jason has a sack over his head. Mm-hmm. But like we said, it's with a trash bag.
It's weird.
It's very distinct.
It's very jarring because like his white skin with like the black trash bag is just like it's a scary look.
Yeah, and I would think though that if you had a trash bag over your head, wouldn't you see the bag kind of like?
You'd hear some rustling too. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of fault in this scene because like
if he got up, you'd hear the.
I would hear something, man. And then he just like before he makes his move, he's just like in the back seat, just like sitting straight up. Like
he's definitely like playing with him. Like it's very cinematic.
I'm gonna notice that, dude. I don't know if I could do anything about it, but I'm gonna notice that this dude's like sitting behind me.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think because there's a movie called Urban Legends. Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's literally just a movie about different urban legends, and one of the urban legends is there's a man in your back seat and you don't know it,
and like the guy like flashing his lights from behind.
Yeah, trying to warn you. And so ever since then, bro, religiously, I get in my car. I have to look.
You look at the back seat?
Have to look.
I mean, better safe than not, I guess.
Yeah, like literally, I got tinted windows now, but especially when I had my other car, I'd be like, peek your head just over. Like, what's a quick glance going to hurt,
What's it going to do? At least I'll never get killed like that.
Maybe that's another thing that this is like a horror trope of, the man in your back seat that you don't pay attention to.
Yeah, it's like a callback to just something that people are like very like aware of, like, and it's just like one of those like visceral scares that everybody kind of relates to because it could be your car. You never know.
Yeah, and so this guy pulls up to a train station or a train track, right, as the train is crossing. So we get this shot of the car just waiting, right? In
the pitch black with no one around.
And you see the dad just lunge at this dude from the back seat. And then it's an overhead shot of the car just not moving, correct?
Yes.
And you kind of just infer, like, he got him.
Yeah, I mean, there's not very many situations where if you don't know the dude's behind you and he gets to jump on you from there, I don't think you can win.
No, unless you're like distinctly or significantly bigger. But even then, like if you get stabbed in the back, dude, you're.
Yeah, you're done. It's over.
But so after this, we get a shot of the old man in the woods, right?
Yes.
He takes this dude's body to the woods, strings him up from a tree upside down. Correct? Mm-hmm. Brings a funnel and some type of like a gallon.
Yeah, like a big, like, you know, kind of like a painter's container that they can just take a whole bunch of liquids.
I think of like windshield fluid or whatever. It looks just like that bottle.
Yes, yes.
And it's got a funnel. He sticks this dude's neck. So they're already dead at this point, probably, right?
He's still alive. He's still breathing at this point. Yeah.
So he's alive, tied upside down. The dad stabs this dude in the neck. Blood's just gushing into this fucking funnel.
Gross. It's pretty disgusting. And so he collects this, and even up until this point, I was watching it with my girlfriend Lydia, and I was like, this dude's kind of like, he's a little like herky-jerky. He's like not like smooth with it. He's like moving around kind of disheveled. Doesn't really look like he is like this like polished killer. Like even though he seems like he has the tool bag. You know, like you watch some like athlete and like towards the end of their careers, like man, the mental's there, but
you can't just keep up.
Can't keep doing it. Like Tim Duncan is one of those dudes. Like he was mentally there like till the end, but physically he's just like he's just moving a little different now. And that's just the kind of vibes this dude's giving off, where he knew what he was doing, but he was just, you know, kind of...
He was in his twilight of his career at that point.
He wasn't there. The prime was gone.
Mm. And we learned that because this dude fucking, like, trips walking with the gallon, bro. And you see him toss the gallon, and you're like, well, I'm sure the lid was on it. And you just see this guy kind of, like, really clumsily, like, walk through the snow, like, like going like that, chasing after it, and it's spilled. The blood is gone.
It's no more in there. Like it's like if you drop a carton of milk, like it's just gone. Like if it's gonna burst, and there's no salvaging it.
Yeah, you think there'd have to be like a more efficient way of collecting blood?
You would think like you would just like set up some like blood bank scam or something like that. You know,
you would think because having to murder somebody every
seemingly every 2 or 3 days.
Probably. That'd be a very quick way to get caught. But, so this dude drops the fucking blood, and he sees, like, a plow coming, right?
Yes.
So, because it falls, like, apparently right off the main. He wasn't that far from the main road, bro.
And he parked, like, there's, like, no one, like, the street was pretty narrow, and his car is, like, in the middle of the road.
Yeah, like, let's just say, like, he parked, it looks about 20 feet from the main road stringing this guy up, dude. I didn't even think about that till just now.
Like, if you were in, like, a semi, you might have been able to see it from the road.
Yeah, so he sees it, he dips out. And so we see Owen get to his apartment. And when he gets home, Kenny hear arguing through the walls in his room. And you can kind of make out, you know, you hear, like, a satanic voice. Like
very
a deep voice,
but it's also muffled because it's through the wall, so you can easily, if you're Owen, just be like, oh, it's like he hasn't heard the old man talk. He assumes it's the dad yelling, and when you hear it, because you're kind of, it's not like a first person narrative the whole time. Mostly you're watching it from Owen's point of view, but you're also seeing a little bit more of like, you get to see the whole murder. You know, so you know that there's other things going on, and Owen doesn't know that. So when you hear this voice yelling and berating somebody, you know that he thinks it's the dad, but you're like, I don't think that's the dad.
Yeah, because specifically what I wrote down, you hear, what am I supposed to do? Am I going to go out there and do it myself? So somebody's upset with somebody, and do you think it's supposed to be implied that it's the old man?
I think you're supposed to think that Owen thinks it's the old man, but I think that we've seen the old man operate, and he's a little too like, he doesn't have that kind of gumption in him to just yell at somebody.
That commanding authority figure type shit.
Oh, not at all. I knew that immediately that wasn't him yelling.
But then you hear another voice, which we find out is, you know, who he thinks is her dad. Maybe I'm getting sloppy or just tired of this.
Oh, the sloppiness is apparent, man. We know you're getting sloppy. You didn't have to say it.
I think we had this POV that was actually inside of their apartment, and we see him talking to the little girl.
Yeah, because I think they just wanted to make it obvious it's a little girl. And this is at the first point, like, because I told you I didn't know going in what kind of movie it was. So I'm like, oh, vampire. Some kind of vampire.
When he strung him up and he was draining the blood, you didn't think vampire?
So at that point, I was like pretty sure vampire. I was like, maybe she's just like a demon who needs blood, but I was like, vampire is probably it.
Definite vampire.
Definite vampire.
So the little girl storms out of the apartment, and the next morning at school, there's an assembly, and it's held. All I put was it's held about death in the community because I didn't really follow this part. But this is where you're saying it was a recent graduate from their school.
Yeah, so I had so many questions about this because like they like it wasn't just like okay, we're gonna come talk to the kids at the assembly, warn them about the recent graduate from the school that just got viciously murdered and strung up to be drained of blood. It wasn't just like an announcement like, hey, kids, be careful. It was like, hey, we're doing the full-on press conference here. The news is coming. Let's have the kids in the background. Like, there was a very odd choice of places just to hold a full-blown press conference with the whole school at attendance.
Yes, and that was very reminiscent to me, bro, of in high school, before prom, did you have an assembly that was like about being safe driving, no drunk driving, safe sex, all that stuff?
I went to Catholic school, so it was about how we couldn't twerk on each other. We had to keep Jesus in between us.
Nah, dude, for us, dude, they, I was like a junior, right? And they had, they played this video on a big screen in the middle of this like fancy ass fucking, it was a nice school. We had a nice like little theater area or whatever. Uh-huh. And they played this video of a guy who was drunk and he wrecked his car on prom night. And, he's in like a wheelchair now. And, because during this assembly, right, Owen sees the bully kids like giggling and shit about whatever's happening or just not paying attention.
Yeah, they do that too to show you how evil these kids are.
Right, but so back to this thing for the prom night assembly I'm at. There's like kids behind me kind of like, oh, look at me, Will am I chill? Like, just saying this really ignorant shit, right?
Yeah.
Yelling, motherfuckers are laughing. When the dude's like rolling, motherfuckers are clapping sarcastically. And so this video for prom, it ends on the big screen. The fucking guy from the video rolls out from behind the curtain, dog. And he goes, what's up, everybody?
Why would they think that's a good idea to make that a surprise?
Bro, I fucking died. But if only that had happened, like, in this movie. Like, the kid just goes, I wasn't dead. I know which one of you did it. But no, that's what that reminded me of when I saw it.
Why would they do that to you guys? That's
I don't fucking
weird.
know.
Why
dude.
would they just be like, all right, the kid's here to talk about his life. Not, hey, we're going to, you know what's really going to get these kids, bro? We're going to bring them in. We're going to bring them in like a celebrity, like Tom Cruise coming on Oprah, just like coming out the back waving to everybody.
I don't think they thought some assholes were going to be like, look at me and my chill.
Lord.
Fucking people, bro. That's all I kept thinking about when I saw this like little like assembly scene.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, why would you do that to high school?
Who knows?
You're just like very open with these kids in death. There's another scene like that too.
Mm-hmm. Very much. Then again, like, it's the 80s, man. What do we know?
Maybe they're doing this in the 80s. Maybe they didn't have anywhere else like to do the assembly at.
They didn't have like the internet. There's no way of getting word out there.
I mean, you could do press conference like from your office.
That's true. There's only like 4 channels on TV, probably.
The police captain's like, I want an audience. Give me the kids.
Hey, man. So now we see it that night. Owen's again outside in this courtyard, and the little girl finds him and says, "Yeah." The little girl walks up on him and she's like, "I want to be alone." And Owen's like, "Bitch, I was alone first."
Oh yeah, that was a power move.
And he's like fucking with his Rubik's Cube, right?
Yeah.
Gives her the Rubik's Cube, and he's kind of explained to her how it works, ain't it? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of them getting somewhat chemistry, I would think.
Yeah, and she kind of mentioned he's like, what is it? And Owen says back to her, it's a puzzle, and she's like, oh, a puzzle.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of like that's his like hook.
It is. It's a nice little end there. Worked out.
And but then he fucks it up because he looks at her and he goes, "You smell funny. You smell kind of funky." And she kind of just brushes it off, and he finally asks her, because she's barefoot again. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Aren't you cold?" And she's like, "I don't get cold," which is again another hint. Like at this point, if you haven't figured out, fuck it, we'll get into this a second. Because he kind of after this, he kind of awkward and abruptly leaves, which I respect. Because like when you feel like you got a high, just walk out.
She told him to leave too. Like, I'd have felt weird about staying.
Did she tell him to leave? Because I think that they were actually like building, and he kind of stops and just goes, "Well, I got to go now."
Okay, I don't remember exactly that part then.
I wrote it down because I was like, "Yeah, my guy, leave while you're on top." You know what I'm saying? Before you say something, and she just deads it or some shit. But after he walks away, she kind of like drops the Rubik's Cube and kind of hunches over, like if she's having like a cramp or something, right? Or if she's in some kind of discomfort. And like I said, you should be able to gather that this bitch is drinking blood.
You think so?
I think so at this point. Because at that point, I was like, all right, the old man was gathering blood. She was upset that he didn't bring the fucking blood. She needs this blood.
Oh, wait a minute.
She's
Are
not
you talking about the
getting it.
kid or us, the audience?
The audience should have
my
gathered
bad.
this.
Okay, yes.
There, I feel like it's kind of a given at this point. Do
Yeah,
you
we
think?
know, yeah.
So, yeah, she's hunched over because she hasn't gotten her fix.
The fix.
The fix. And so then we get a scene of a guy jogging into a creepy tunnel.
Oh, yes. This
Like,
is
why
a great
the fuck
scene.
are you jogging into a creepy ass tunnel, bro?
And was that, like, did the tunnel, like, have, like, an exit on the other side?
It had an exit on the other side.
It looked like there was, like, a weird turn or something. Like the way where she was at was just kind of a weird spot in the tunnel.
She was at the end of the tunnel because as he's jogging up to it, you see her silhouette at the end of it. This kind of this dark little shadow sitting on the ground. And he stops. And this wasn't an outrageous scene because sometimes I feel like movies do stuff like this and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? But, you know, you see like a little kid sitting on the floor. You're kind of like, hey, is everything okay?
Definitely when it's like a little kid about that age.
A little girl especially.
And a little kid that doesn't look like at this point she looks normal. Like the little kid sitting there barefoot, you're just like, what happened? Like, we need to get you help. That's my first thing if I see a little kid like that. Not anymore though.
Here's another thing though. All right, so they have this conversation and he asks her, or he's like, why are you on the floor? And she's like, I fell. And he's like, he seems like he's legitimately concerned. And she asks, can you carry me? Now, right there is where I'm like, I'm not going to carry you.
Oh, definitely not touching a little white girl.
We're not touching you, dude.
Like, we're walking 5 feet apart. Like, we don't need any.
Like, do you have a number we can call? Somebody can come and get you? Somebody that you know can carry you? Because I'm not picking you up.
I'm starting Facebook Live right now. Everybody's going to see that. This is just me helping you.
Yeah, dude. Because I'm not touching a kid I don't know, especially a little girl.
Oh, definitely not. We're making very sure that this is a very transparent interaction.
Exactly. Because that was my first thought. I was like, she'd be like, can you carry me? No.
No, I can't.
You just see my breath, but no.
And also in this scene is very cool because he's down there like talking in her face, the guy who's jogging, and he has a really heavy breath, and you could see the breath get really big. Like he has a big fog coming out of his mouth, and she doesn't have that at all. Like,
I didn't catch that part.
Very, very little breath coming out, and like it's just like, oh, she's like it's like one of those hints.
Like there's no body heat.
Like there's not body heat coming out. She's not really radiating. You can kind of see it a little bit, but not really.
It's faint. And like we kind of, the shot is set up to where the lights are behind them, so we're kind of more or less just getting silhouettes of them, correct?
Yes.
And that comes into play because when he actually, you know, he picks her up and she like wraps her legs around him, and abruptly she just starts attacking the dude. You can't really tell how because she does this a couple of times. She's like spider crawling all over people, right?
Yeah, she has a very she's not very fluid. Like the movements aren't just like normal like monster like vampire movements like that you'd kind of think of. She's more like kind of like turns into like more of like a gargoyle type, just awkward, kind of lunging little like crawly animal that's not like a typical like human type vampire that you see in most movies.
So this scene is clearly CG, right?
Yes, definitely.
How'd you feel about it? I think it was kind of clunky in my opinion.
I feel like any time that she turned into vampire mode, it was just like, okay, like
they only do it 2 times.
3
that I can remember.
There's 3 times that it happens, and each time it's just every time it kind of is.
It's just definitely kind of awkward, right?
Yeah, it's just like, why is she moving like that?
Like you said, it's not fluid. It looks like computery to me.
It's like I think they're going for trying to make her very animalistic and like this, like an obvious jump from her human self, and trying to make her like real clunky and like moving like kind of weird, like not even like an animal would, but something that's just like evil.
Oh, you're right. It is 3 times. But okay, yeah.
And then like it just doesn't play right because it's so clunky that the CGI just looks like it's bad.
Yeah, because and it's kind of a double-edged sword because the movie is shot so well and the scenes look so clean that for this part where you can tell it was heavily edited, it's kind of a disservice to it, right?
So every part of this movie is shot so cleanly and beautifully, and then the only parts that's not is the vampire scenes in a vampire movie. Is just kind of, and it had been rough on this, like like whenever you make something or draw something or write something and you look back the second time and it's just like you see like the glaring error.
Yeah,
I feel like that director definitely is like in the premiere, like, oh man,
this was fucked up.
I was too close to this.
Yeah, but I mean, did it take away? Was it bad? No, but it definitely felt it. It was noted in my head.
Yeah. So one thing this movie just never really did was scare me. And I think that the CGI kind of had something to do with it.
Definitely.
And I mean, it was whatever, but I don't think this movie was meant to be a horror movie that kind of like did just like terror scares for no reason. It was just meant to be like a pointed, like smart film that didn't rely on the scares. But I think if they could have done the vampire better, it would have been a better movie.
Yeah, just specifically, not even, I don't think, like when she's a vampire, they show some like they do that after because she bites this dude in the neck clearly, and she lifts her head up and she's got like yellow eyes.
Yes.
And do you see the fangs? I can't remember.
I really don't think you see the like you see
just
like
see blood on her face, right?
Her teeth are like look like a
jagged,
gnarly, but they're not like just two obvious fangs like the cartoonish vampire look.
Yeah, like I kind of like that they didn't like go straight Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And like give like the furrowed brow and shit like they've done in like From Dusk Till Dawn and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked how it was a low key thing. And I don't know, like I didn't mind their vampire shots. It was just those attack scenes, the vampire attack scenes specifically.
More the way she moved than the way she looked for you.
Yeah, the look was fine, but the actual attack scenes are what threw me off. That was reminiscent of like you ever seen or shit, man, they look like the fucking bring up Blade again, Blade 2, when he fought the bald little albino things.
I remember them looking like really like just like
it was their movements were similar to that, like spider crawling.
They just weren't like doing it right, yeah.
Yeah. But no, so she snaps his neck after she bites him. And there's a point to that we don't know at that moment. Did you catch that?
I did not at the moment, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so she snaps his neck and she just dips out. And then we see Owen creeping with his telescope again. And he sees, I just call him the sex couple.
The sex couple.
He sees the sex couple, but the guy that was working out's not there. So from that moment, we kind of infer, oh, she just murked the guy that was working out.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that at all that was that guy until he shows the empty room. And I was like, huh.
I didn't either. I didn't connect those dots. And we hear the neighbors yelling again. And then we see, this old man walking away from the apartment. And I guess he grabbed the jogger's body.
Yeah, and he grabbed it. And
I didn't know I thought he had to go back and grab the woman or the dude he killed earlier.
No, that dude's disposed of clean. This guy, he's just like, I need to hide this because it's like right in the middle of like
our fucking house, bro.
And it's like a second murder in this like area and like this long.
He actually hit that one really slick.
He really did. He got it out. He has the years of practice. Like the dude's seasoned, obviously. And this is like kind of a weird, like just little scene of it's. I think it's one of those other ones that kind of just dragged on too long. It should have just been just him dragging the body in the lake, in and out, maybe a minute.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of shit that's stretched. I didn't realize how long it was until I started it at like 4 and I got done with it like right at 7.
Yeah, it was a long movie. Like I was just like, okay, well, I was in this for too long. So what's the next scene that happens after this?
It's when Owen goes back to the playground in the morning and the Rubik's Cube is completed on the monkey bars.
Okay.
And he probably has like this inferiority complex. Like, wow, I'm stupid as shit.
That, and he's just like, hey, this girl, I'm in there.
She's got brains. and he walks by a memorial for that kid at school, which I didn't connect that the dude worked there. I thought the cops were just like randomly telling kids about a murder.
So weird.
And so again, I guess another night, Owen meets this little girl at a playground, and she doesn't look sickly anymore. And she even kind of like makes the comment like, "Do I still smell funny?" And dude's like, "Nah, I like it."
At this point, you're getting like the heavy vibes from her. Like, hey, dude, like, what's up? Like, she's going over to him. She's like, hey, how do I smell? Like, am I doing good? And Owen's picking up on it, I think. I don't think Owen has much experience, but he's picking up on that. She's coming in. He's smelling what she's stepping in. He's liking it.
Exactly. And she finally gives us her name, which is Abby. And she says she's 12, but she doesn't know her birthday. And
she says 12-ish.
She says 12 or something or some shit like that.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And she doesn't really elaborate on it. Owen kind of just brushes it off. He kind of asks about it, but she's not going to tell him. Mm-hmm. And once again, this is kind of like just those hints that like, this bitch is an immortal, blah, blah,
blah. She's immortal.
And she seems more friendly, and she offers to show Owen how to do the Rubik's Cube. And so that's kind of, once again, showing the chemistry is still growing.
Yeah, it's still there. Their friendship is getting bigger. Their romantic little... I don't even know if it's... We were talking about, is this a romantic movie? And I don't know if it's a romance.
It's because if we do say it's romance, it's very taboo. There's some very taboo things we'd have to discuss.
I think we can get into it a little more when we kind of reveal like
yeah. That's why I hesitate to call it romance, is because like I feel like it's a very taboo thing if it is.
There's just so many layers, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. That's gonna be a fun thing to break down.
Yeah. So, and the next day in class, bro, Owen's like looking up how to do Morse code in like an old textbook. And this is just such like a timepiece of a thing, because we were in that fun generation where like I feel like libraries were still a big thing when we were kids. And you know, nowadays with computers and shit, everybody's just buying ebooks and stuff. And I feel like you have to kind of know what you're looking for. Whereas in a library, you could just walk around and find bullshit.
You can find anything. Like back then, like you were just like I think we were maybe the last generation of kids to grow up without like cell phones. Because like I'm 27, you're 28, right?
Yeah.
And so we were like introduced to cell phones in like maybe middle school or high school. I got my first in high school. And so we went those first years just literally having to entertain ourselves, and I didn't have internet. We didn't have any of that stuff. So libraries were super important, and you could go in there and get whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, actually, you don't even need books nowadays because of the power of Google, bro. We know everything.
You can get any facts you want just like by typing it in. Back then, it'd be like, I want to know this random thing about this random dinosaur. I had to go read it in a dinosaur book, find the index, get there, and hopefully they had the information in that book. Or not, I had to go find another book.
Find somebody who knows something to point you in a direction.
It was tough, yeah.
So, but anyway, so Owen's learning fucking Morse code. And the bully makes eye contact with him learning Morse code. And the bully just, dude, this kid, bro, he just is so pissed off all the time.
The dude's vicious.
He just sees Owen smiling into a book, and he's like, annoyed. He's like, bro, you're pissing me off with your fucking face, Owen.
This kid, at this point, I wrote down, who's worse? Because at this point, I thought she was a demon. I guess I still didn't know she's a vampire. I wrote down demon. Who's worse, the demon or the bully? And you really don't have an answer. Because
no.
He sucks, dude. Like, he is just vicious to this poor kid. Like,
that's props to the actor, bro. Like, you referenced Joffrey, bro. Like, you just hate the kid so fucking much.
He had the worst smirk of all time. It's just a shitty smirk. Oh, man, I would smack this kid if I saw him. Even, like, at my age. I just walked up this 12-year-old and hit him.
Nah, but so, the next scene is Owen just taking a leak, bro, in the bathroom stall. Minding his own business, bro. Taking a whiz. And then you just hear someone banging on the fucking stall door, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And I've been in this scenario, bro. When I was the new kid, I had gone to this school called All Saints. And I was only there for like a week. But that happened to me, dog. I didn't get fucked up like Owen's probably about to. But they leaned on the door. They wouldn't let me out. And they're like, I'm like 6. Mm-hmm. And these are kids in like probably 5th grade plus or something.
They lean on the door?
They lean on the door so I couldn't get out. And I think they turned the lights off. And like I said, that's why like I have a lot of these experiences that like paralleled like what Owen went through, man. So like I just felt that shit on like a whole nother level,
I feel you, yeah. I guess I didn't have that. One time I got in trouble because I was in the bathroom and these kids were doing that to this younger kid. They were just like pounding on the door and like flipping the lights on and off. Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. Like I had to get out of there, man. They didn't notice me. But so this is when he gets out, right? And isn't the kid, what the fuck does he have? Is it an antenna?
Yeah, it's like one of those weird like pointers that like teachers used to use like to bang on the chalkboard to like point out like stuff like
an extender, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing. Like maybe like kind of reminds me of like an antenna off a car.
Yeah, like a car antenna. That's the best way to describe what he had. Because the kid's telling Owen, like, hey, show me what you were writing down. And Owen's like, it was nothing, man. Doesn't he try to stand up for himself slightly?
I think a little bit.
Because he's like, I'm not going to show you.
Yeah. And then he's like, show me.
And then the kid just starts whipping him in the leg, dude. And this is the part where I was like, that's uncomfortable. Because, it's fucking child abuse, bro. You're watching a little kid get whacked with the goddamn antenna.
In like awful ways too. Like some bullying scenes, like you kind of get like a push and the kid gets knocked down, but like this bully's inflicting damage.
Yeah, because he ends up whipping him in his fucking cheek on the face, and it's like
just breaks skin, and it's a really cool shot. Like you see the skin just like
start to give, and then blood come out.
Oh, it's nasty.
And even his boys, bro, the bully squad is like, dude, how the hell are you gonna explain that to his mom? Like, why are you hitting him in his face?
Oh, then he gets him with like the mafia. Like he just like goes like he's like a mobster on him. He's like, hey, like you didn't get this from me. Like you got this plan on the park, you in playground, right? And he's like, yeah.
This is that part like we were talking about where Owen kind of bitches out.
A lot, dude. He is,
because it's so. I mean, maybe to us it seems easy with hindsight to be like, just tell somebody, dude. Look what the fuck you did to my face, bro.
Yeah, it'd been so easy to just get out of there and be like, hey, these kids, these 3 full names, telling them like, hey, they took me in the bathroom and whipped me with a weapon, and now I'm bleeding.
Yeah, bro. Fuck snitches get stitches, bro. I'm telling them you're social. I'm telling them everything, bro.
I'm telling on you that.
I might throw in some shit. He poked me in the butt, bro. Just start like limping in that bitch.
Like, I can't even say all the things he did to me.
And so he actually, unfortunately, Owen does that. He doesn't tell on the bully. He goes home and his mom's like, what happened? And he just tells him, I fell. And she just tells him, like, be more careful, right? Or some shit like that.
Yeah. Honestly, things would have been better for the bully if you'd have told him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. There could have been some course correction.
Yeah, then things might not have gone the way they did. So he goes outside from his mom and he's, goes to his corner, his little stool playground thing. And he sees the little girl there again. And she sees the scar, and he immediately tells her what the problem is.
Well, yeah, but before that though, he sees he's introducing her to the Morse code shit. But the way he presents it to her is with like the Romeo and Juliet book also.
Yeah.
And she seems more interested in the book actually than the Morse code thing Owen's trying to show her. Mm-hmm. Which I mean that kind of makes sense because how many kids are like getting excited about Morse code?
I wouldn't be. I'd be like, dude, like we could just talk. I can write you a note.
Like anything, bro.
Anything. I ain't trying to like pound like in sequential time.
That seems like a chore to learn.
It really does. Like they picked it up really quick. I can see with her because she's probably like smarter than him, but like him, nah. She probably had to know Morse code at some point.
Yeah, but as soon as he brings that up, she's like, she kind of seems startled. She's like, "You can hear us through the walls."
Yes, that scene. I forgot about that.
It's part. Her demeanor completely changes for a second, and she's kind of like, I feel like in her head, gears are turning like, do I have to do something right now?
I don't know if she's ever at that point because I don't think she's really scared of anybody because I don't think that like she's ever really been threatened as like someone who has a chance to get killed,
Yeah.
So she doesn't want him to know all at once, I think, because even she says like right when she's like, you can hear through the walls, and he's like, she says, what did you hear?
Yeah.
She asked him that, and so she learns that Owen thinks that her dad was the one yelling, not her demonic side, which sadly we never get to see on screen her talking in that tone.
No, we don't. But then again, I think that's kind of better because I think that would be a corny shot.
Maybe.
It would remind me of like, there's not even like good examples of it, bro. Like Scooby-Doo does it one time, the Scooby-Doo movie.
The one with the vampires?
No, the movie where they go to the island and there's like demons and Scrappy.
Oh yeah, she's like, "Wait, Shaggy."
Wait, Shaggy. Like, tell me that didn't look kind of goofy, bro.
It was. I think it was supposed to be funny though.
It's supposed to be funny, but that's how it would come off in this if they did it, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. It'd be tough.
But anyway, so like after they mention, you know, he hears through the walls. He asks like, "Where's your mom at?" And she's like, "Oh, my mom's dead." Mm-hmm. And after this is when she mentions like his scar.
Yes.
And Owen, doesn't he tell her pretty much what really happened?
He tells her verbatim what happened. He doesn't like hold it like when his mom asked him about it. He tells her the truth.
And then Abby proceeds to put on her like Straight Outta Compton t-shirt and her shades. And she's like, "Listen, you need to walk up to the biggest, baddest motherfucker in the school and knock him the fuck out."
She pretty much went new guy on him.
She recites the Eddie Griffin speech from The New Guy.
She's like, you can't do this. Like,
she's like, you gotta hit back hard. But then he's like, but what if they just hit me back? She's like, then you hit back even harder.
Very simple logic, but I think Owen really learned a lot from that conversation.
Yes. But so, evidently Owen's not good at that. He doesn't. Not. But Abby tells him like, she's like, hey, he's like, but how do I fight back? And she's like, you got a knife. And that's kind of the moment where it's like,
it got real.
Oh, we don't do that. This isn't good. Abby's not Dr. Phil, guys. Okay.
You got a knife though. Like, how are you getting picked on with a knife?
And so Owen's kind of like, all right, well, if I keep fighting back and I hit them harder and they keep coming, then what? And Abby says, then I'll come. Which was hard as fuck.
It was pretty hard. He was like, even Owen's like, what do you mean you'll come? Like, you're
like
a girl.
We know, but Owen's kind of like, you're a girl. What are you talking about?
That was a perfect imitation of his voice. He talks just like so like whimpered out. You're a girl.
Like, because it reminds me of my nephew, Julian, bro. My nephew's kind of like, I'm gonna go make some pizza rolls, okay? And that's more or less how this kid talks.
That's so funny.
Very, very immature. Like we were saying about that awkward age. Like this bully, you can tell he looks about 12 or something.
Uh-huh.
Where Owen, he looks 10.
He looks 10 or 9, but he's actually 12 too.
Yes, like he's a very underdeveloped kid for this age group, which is why he's getting picked on. He still has that innocence.
He really does. And I really love from this scene when Abby tells him, she's like, I'm stronger than I look. I was like, oh, she's much stronger than she looks. She's very good at just dropping hints.
Yeah, and like we said, that comes back to that part where believability as badass.
Yeah, where you think that like even if she wasn't like turned into a vampire, you can still see that version of her going in there and just punching a dude and putting him down.
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, did you ever see Diary of a Wimpy Kid? She's in that.
Bit. Is she?
She's the main girl. She's a very confident character in that movie.
Uh-huh.
And she parallels Greg Heffley, the nervous, goofy ass kid who's kind of like fucking Owen. And she just portrays that character very well. That very confident character, like I'm better than most people.
Yeah, it really does like show in that scene where she's like, I can do that, and you believe it without thinking that she's a vampire.
Like there wasn't a moment where I was like, pfft.
Yeah, for sure. You're just like, oh, this girl like gets it. She's tough. She can just handle herself on her own.
And so the next day at school, Owen asks the gym teacher about a weight class. He's like, what's up with the after school weight class? And doesn't the guy just tell him like just bring some money or some shit? Or no, he just tells him show up after school, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's it. It's real easy. Join the weight class.
Did you ever do after school weights, bro?
Nah, dude, I wasn't a weightlifter, man. I didn't like it.
I didn't either, but I went to one class and they were doing like bear crawls upside down some like stairs. And I remember I saw it and there was a line to do it and there was like 20 kids in front of me. And by the time I was about like the 5th kid away and I was watching them go, Yeah, no, I just left. Like I had a chance to see 15 kids do it, and I was like,
It didn't look pleasant at all.
no, that doesn't look fun.
It was always like the damn wrestling coach who just like was really just trying to get his troops ready for battle.
I think that's what it was, bro. They were all, it was the entire wrestling team, and then I just show up as a red shirt with like nothing to like.
And the wrestlers just have like no kind of like care or like fear about like their body or life, you know?
They've all just been drinking like 9 gallons of water all day.
They're just like used to the torturous effects on their body. It's just like such a weird clique and cult to be in, but they're just like all rock solid and ready to go.
Pretty much, dude. And I was just there thinking like, all right, we're gonna do a little bit of bench. We might do some light jogging.
I had a few reps, you know.
And then the motherfucker just started bear crawling down flights of stairs, and I was like, nah.
Down flights of stairs?
Down, bro. Like literally on all 4 hands crawling downstairs like
No.
3 flights, bro.
No.
That was the opening.
That was the first drill. I wouldn't do it. I would have left too, dude.
I was like, it's not for me. But so after this, though, this is the part I was talking about. This is where I noticed Owen swipes a 20 from his mother's purse. And as he does it, it's like on a vanity. So there's a mirror in front of him, right?
Yeah.
And when he pulls the 20 out, he looks up, and his mom is really religious. We've been kind of getting subtle hints at.
Yeah, she like the very first scene we see her at dinner is she wants to pray.
She's praying at dinner.
And then this scene on the vanity, there is all kinds of religious images on there, most notably a big Jesus picture.
Giant Jesus photo that makes hard eye contact with Owen.
This isn't one of those scenes where it's like, okay, sometimes we're going to steadily give you like a little hint of what we mean. And other times it's like, Jesus is looking right at Owen. He's stealing money. He's bad. It's just like, okay, I get it.
We want that hardcore, like, imprinted into his brain at that moment.
Very pointed.
And so he takes this 20 we learned because he wants to take Abby to an arcade, which is cool. I like this scene.
He's like going for it. Right? He's like being smooth. He's being slick. He's like, I'm going to take her out. Let me take you out.
Like, and also I like the scene just in general because I feel like this is kind of a dead thing. Like, you go to an arcade, bro. Independently, you bring the girl, they're playing Pac-Man, you know, you're buying treats and stuff. They bought candy afterwards. And I feel like today's generation, is that still a thing? Like, is the closest thing to, like, what, roller skating or some shit?
I mean, I don't think that the generation of kids right now has that kind of like in-person vehicle that like is just like somewhere you would just hang out at.
You think that's a small town thing?
I don't think so, because I remember going to the mall and just going to the arcade when my mom shopped. But I also, that small town thing would be cool because you can just go to an arcade that's on the corner where your friends would be hanging out.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really a Kansas City thing either.
That's true. And also, you know, I don't think their neighborhood was like ours. Because we live in a very sus neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's not a whole lot of, like, you're going to be left alone at a young age, especially.
Where you can just roll around. But I also think the 80s was a time where, like, you know, they didn't really report on, like, you didn't hear about every single kidnapping of kids. You know?
It was happening, bro. They just didn't know.
Yeah, they just, like, didn't hear about all these kids getting kidnapped. But, like, now, like, you could just, like, open up, like, and be like, oh, someone got kidnapped today, you know?
Amber Alerts every week.
Yeah, you're very aware that kids get kidnapped now. Back then, it was just like, go ahead, dude. Go be back in an hour.
You know, just go for it. But no, so like I said, Owen decides to buy some candies, and he's trying to sell to Abby, like, yo, these are my favorite fucking candies. You have got to try one. And she's kind of like, nah, I'm good. And he looks butthurt instantly.
You can, like, tell, like, there's, like, this scene, like, he's just starting to puff up his chest a little bit in a different way. So, like, I don't know if you remember the first time you went to, like, the movies with a girl, like, by yourselves, and you're like, all right, I'm going to pay for her. In your mind, you know, you're just like, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to go and be like, 2 tickets, not be like, oh, 1. Because before you go with the groups of friends, you'd be like, oh, just 1 ticket, please. And this, I'm like, I'm going to get 2. So he really does this in this scene where he's, like, at the counter. He's like, you know what? Get whatever you want. I got it. Don't worry about it. And it's very, like, showing of how he's just, like, trying to be smooth and trying to be this version of what he thinks is, like, a romantic, like, man actor at this point. And she's just like, no, I don't want it. And it just like breaks him. Like that facade goes totally out the window and he's just like sad.
Speaking of that, bro, do you remember? I remember the first time I took a female out, right? I had just gotten money from my birthday. I think my parents had given me like $30.
Okay.
And I had a girl at the time, and I was like, all right, we're going to go somewhere fancy. I'm going to take you out, all right? And my mom drove us. And I picked IHOP.
Woo!
I was like, I'm taking you to IHOP, baby girl. And I didn't understand the concept of tipping.
For real?
So we get there, bro. I have $30 in my pocket, and $30 is all I have. And in IHOP, we spent like $29.50 something. And so we pay.
You're like 12
and after the
13.
fact, you know, I'm like, I got 50 cents. And the girl's like, you leaving a tip? I'm like, what's a tip? I didn't understand that concept. It wasn't explained to me.
Uh-huh.
And I never paid attention, bro. My fat ass just ate and dipped.
You're just like, I'm eating.
I'm eating good, daddy. So, but yeah, that's my first memory of like one of the first times I did that, bro. I just left 2 quarters on the table, you know, on a $30 bill and just dipped.
Oh, and it's rough because you're trying to like flex a little bit in front of the girl, you know, and then she's the one who brought it up, and you're just like, ah.
Not me, dude. I wasn't at all shy about it. I was like, I didn't know this exists. So this isn't technically a me problem. This is the world.
This is the world. It's not my problem right now. This is you guys not teaching me this.
Do you have any like experiences like that?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Just first time you took a female out?
Like I said, like the idea of going to like the movies was like, that was like always my go-to. And I was like, you know, coming up on
Yeah.
in the lady game. I was like, all right, let's go to the movies. I'm going to pay for it. You ain't going to have to pay for it. It's only $6 at Cinemark, but still, like, back then, $6 meant something when you were that little.
That's true.
Like, $6 is like, if you had like $50, like, you know, when you're like 13, you were rich, bro. I was like, this $50 is never going to run away. Like, it's never going to, like, how am I going to spend all this money on something? Like, unless I buy like a video game, like.
Bro, I got all this PTSD kicking up right now from like my lack of understanding of like money and females.
Yeah.
I remember I was also dating this same chick, and I saw this like necklace I wanted to buy her for something. I don't know if it was an anniversary or a birthday or some shit. And there's this old shop in the mall that was run by like these Asian people. I don't know what they were. And I saw this chain. It was like $19.99, and I'm like, yo. That chain's perfect. I got $20 from my parents. I'm like, you know, 13, 12 or some shit. And I show up and I'm like, yo, I want this chain. And they're like, all right. They're like, 20.35. It says $19.99 on that fucking tag. You're not going to lie to me right now.
You didn't know about
Dude, I don't know about tax, bro.
At
I
what
didn't
age
worry
did you
about
not know
money.
about tax?
Why would I know about tax? I wasn't buying anything before that.
You never seen a receipt in your life?
I probably saw one and I could give no fucks about it.
You never saw like the infomercials like $19.99 plus tax?
I saw plus tax. I didn't know what the fuck that meant. Nobody explains it to you, bro. There wasn't a class in school about tax. So, do you know what I did?
What'd you do?
I'm at the mall, right? I went to all of the fountains in the mall, bro.
Man.
Fucking arm deep in the fucking fountains, grabbing quarters. Specifically the Rainforest Cafe where the alligator's in the water.
I know what you're talking about.
I'm trying to like duck the alligator as I'm going into the fucking water, pulling out like quarters. And I was like, here, 2025, give me my chain.
Nice, you got it though.
I know. That was a very long tangent, but I just thought of that, you know, with Owen's struggles with fucking bread at this point.
It all kind of like blends into each other. It really is like just plays on your emotion because everybody has that, no matter if it's a girl or a boy, just has that first moment of kind of trying to be like an adult dating, you know? You're trying to mimic what an adult date would be like, but you're just like a kid. Like it's not like real or romance or anything like that. You're just a kid trying to mimic what you see because you think that will get you the girl.
It's very much a cool scene, and why this is a good. I think I prefer it as a coming of age film rather than romantic because it kicks up all those nostalgic memories that you have.
Yeah, and I think also a little bit during this scene, I think that they're trying to do. This is what I took from it is that Abby is also, because we've talked about this a lot from the perspective of Owen and how he feels and how his life is going, but I think in a way we're seeing that Abby is becoming a little bit more humanized, and she's kind of remembering what it's like to have fun with a kid, because she is I think mentally still a kid, even if she's a vampire who's kind of locked in her age. Like, does that make sense?
I know what you're saying, and I have a very specific question about that would be interesting to talk about.
Okay.
But I'll save it.
Okay, save it.
So, like I said, Owen offers her this candy. At first, she declines it, but once she sees that he's upset, she's like, you know what? Give me the fucking candy. And she eats it. It's good. And then we get the scene of the outside of the arcade. She walks out the door and just starts spitting it up, right?
Just puking.
Her body's just rejecting it. Apparently, she can only drink blood. Her body won't accept anything else.
I wouldn't want to be this kind of vampire. Like a vampire that can like enjoy like the good things in life and kind of just live for forever and be the same age. Not bad. This kind of vampire, nah. I'm trying to enjoy. Like, I love food too much to just never be able to eat food again.
What if you could just eat like a raw steak? No, because you can only drink blood, right? So you can't even eat a steak.
You can't even get the meat. And it has to be like human. It seems like in this movie.
Damn. Yeah, because why wouldn't she just, back to Twilight, bro? They ate cows.
Did they? They didn't eat people?
No, they would run out into the field and just eat cows. Or just drink cows, and I don't think they'd kill them. They just drink their blood.
That's why this ruins
That's why Twilight killed everything, bro.
Vampire genre. They made like you could just like do whatever by eating cows. Like, nah, you need human blood to keep the.
You gotta be human, bro. Come on. And so after Owen walks up on her like puking, she turns around and she's very apologetic. So she's very conscious of Owen's feelings.
Yes.
And doesn't he just hug her? He hugs her because he sees her like that she's upset about disappointing him, she thinks.
Uh-huh.
So he just kind of hugs her, and this is the first time that they have like physical interaction.
It's kind of a really cute date scene, but
It
also
is.
kind of disturbing.
Because of the undertones. Like I said, the taboo undertones that if you really think about it.
Very taboo.
Because I guess we can even talk about it at this point. She's a vampire. So
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it now.
You assume vampires 100 years old at least.
At least, living a couple centuries.
Like, because have you ever seen Interview with the Vampire with Brad Pitt?
Yes.
So Kirsten Dunst, she turns into a vampire. Decades go by, she never grows old, but her mentality is that of, somebody who's in their 50s or some shit, but she's stuck in this, 12-year-old girl's body.
Yes, and that's so, like I said, vampire movies are just like so weird because you think you know the rules. Like, so I wrote that in my notes like 4 times. Like, what are the rules? Like, is she aging mentally, or is because she got bit as a little girl, is she still a little girl mentally who has just lived and seen a lot of different stuff and learned, but is still kind of like hindered by that she still has the brain size or the development of a little girl.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing, and they don't really answer that or play with the idea in this movie. Like, she's kind of pretty much just a little girl throughout this entire movie.
And her emotions and the way she reacts to things and reads the room are very much like a little girl.
Everything's very childlike, as if she's reacting to it for the first time.
She at no point seems like a mature adult.
No.
So I don't know if you did much research on this. There was also this was a book, first of all, and then it was a Swedish movie. They said in the Swedish movie, a voice actor played her voice. So she had the voice actress of like a 40-something-year-old lady, and then she talked with that voice. And so it gave it like a kind of another layer of like, she's not really a kid.
Yes.
And so in the Swedish film, they made it very obvious. And I think it was very pointed of a choice to give her, to kind of make her real childish in this movie, for you to kind of have that question of like, wait, is she a little kid still? And I think that everything in my mind says, yes, she's a little kid, but also like, how do you live that long and still be a little kid?
Yes, the movie definitely, it leans more towards she's actually still childlike in the head, but you still brainstorm and think, maybe she's 100 years old in her head, which makes this very uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
Because when she's hugging him, you're like, all right, you're like 100 years old hugging like this, 12-year-old kid.
Yes, but somehow less uncomfortable than the next scene.
Which is,
If I'm not mistaken, it's when she needs to feed again, right?
not quite. So for here it says, I guess Abby asks Owen if she likes him. Or no, Owen asked that. And
Yeah.
if she would go steady with him. Is that an 80s term?
So that's after.
Oh, no. This is Abby. Because Abby asks, do you like me? And he's like, yeah, I guess. And she's like, would you still like me if I wasn't a girl?
Yes, and it's still in the parking lot after they hug for the first time, after their date.
Right.
And he's like, I don't know. What do you mean?
And he goes, yes. And they don't continue that conversation. And do you have any intentions of watching the Swedish version of this movie?
No.
Okay, so that comes up a couple of times where she says, like, would you still like me if I wasn't a girl? And in this movie, I feel like that's in reference to the fact that she thinks she's a monster in her head, right?
Uh-huh.
So is that kind of what you thought she meant?
I think she was like pointing out that it was her like vampire, like she's a vampire. Like I'm not a girl necessarily, and I don't know if she's very. You never really know if she's like even like gendered in a way.
Well, you see, I think that's a callback because in the Swedish film, it's revealed that the little girl is actually a boy that was castrated.
Seriously?
And you get a full frontal view of the gash and the scar.
Well, I'm glad we didn't see that.
Exactly. So that's why I feel like every time I heard that in this movie, I was like, are they gonna...
I kind of got those vibes because she didn't say, would you like me even if I wasn't like...
But this movie never goes that way. Like, that's what I think they're supposed to say, is that it's, But that's very dark.
Very dark. I didn't need to hear any of that or see it.
You're like, I could have gone along fine not knowing that little tidbit just now.
Not knowing that they showed the castrated boy.
Yeah. So, like I said, that's kind of where... I wonder if that was a callback, if they were trying to imply that was this scenario.
Potentially. I think that they're saying what if I wasn't a girl is very specific. So I think so.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about the Swedish film.
That's why when you were bringing up the Swedish film, I was like, I wonder if he...
No, I read some tidbits about it, but not a lot about it.
I think I just saw, like... I can't remember if I've watched it. I think I've seen,
see
like,
that they
highlights.
said that, like, the character's name was Eli.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Eli? Huh, that's not a girl's name.
So that was the girl's name in the movie?
I think so. In the Swedish
one.
version, it said Eli did this, and this one it was Abby. So
Definitely more gender neutral. I don't think Eli's a fucking girl's name, though.
No, not at all. Eli's a dude.
So, So Owen asks Abby at some point, where is her family from? She says, all over. So the movie's still kind of like trying to throw... I think at this point, everybody knows what the fuck's going on except Owen. And they're trying to like just slap Owen in the face with like, hint, hint, hint.
Here's a clue. Here's a clue. Here's a clue. Like
My boy Owen's just not there, bro.
No clue. He's just thinking with his underpants. Like
he's pretty much me with tax at this point.
You with the tax is just clueless.
I have no idea what's going on. I'm just outraged at everything.
He's just happy there's just a girl talking to him. He just doesn't care about the rest of the clues that are just obvious around him.
Mm-hmm. And Owen mentions during this conversation, because I think they're back in the courtyard now or outside the complex, and he's like, I just want to leave this place and never come back, which is, kind of understandable given his situation.
Yeah, because remember when we talked about his mom in the first scene?
Yeah.
We haven't seen her since.
No, he's just been out and about, bro, doing whatever the fuck he wants.
Like, we see her, like, very rarely in this movie, and, like, his life seems like it's terrible.
Yeah, but I mean... I think this is another, maybe it's too specific. It's like another, white culture thing, that whole, like, I'm going to run away. Because do you know a whole lot of kids, like, that have run away?
I know no kids that have ran away.
I don't either, personally. But then again, that's just us, Even if we know, like, 50 kids, that's not, it's not nowhere near 50, bro. But I don't want to generalize that, but I feel like that's more. You think that's a Hollywood trope? Like I'm gonna run away the second there's a problem.
I think it's a white thing too. It's an angsty kind of trope where you're like, I know a lot of kids in my high school where as soon as I graduate, I'm leaving this city and I'm not going to come back. Like, that kind of like,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's like, it really was a thing. Like, they're like, Kansas City's so boring and this and this. I want to go. And they end up living in some place in like Idaho. Like, he's like, all right, dude, like,
Way to go crazy.
way to go crazy here. Like, if you go to New York City, I got you. Like, I understand. But a lot of people are really like that. And they're just like trying to get away from everything because they think that their like angsty life is the worst thing that could happen. And changing their location of their life would really help it. But I think that's just a white thing.
More than likely. Because that's what Owen says. He's like, I just want to get out of here, man. Like, there's a lot of people living in shitty situations. You don't always run from it. And to be honest with you, man, like, yeah, his situation sucks, but is it really that bad?
It really was.
He had a roof. He had food on his table. Was he lonely? Sure. But was he slightly neglected? Sure. But like I said, he had all the essentials still. He could have made friends at school. He could have did something.
A new school would have done wonders for this kid. I'm not going to lie to you. After this kid got lazy to impede himself, like, you're probably not going to try to associate with him because it'd just be a bad look.
Did we even mention that when we talked about the wedgie scene when he pissed
I don't
himself?
think we did. We just talked about the viciousness of the wedgie.
Yeah. He pissed himself earlier in the movie, guys. It was brutal. But anyway, so after he's talking about dipping, Abby kind of has this moment where she like grabs his hand. Mm-hmm. And again, the movie really builds up these like physical moments. Because Abby seems like a very standoffish person.
Yeah, there's very little touch, and then when there is touch, they make it very intentional to be like, "Hey guys, they're touching."
It's definitely highlighted, like, "Oh shit!" And the moment their hands touch, Owen's mom yells out, "Come inside."
Oh man,
Cock block.
Bad.
Owen turns around. Abby's done the Batman thing, bro. She's gone.
She just disappeared.
And doesn't she? He bumps into her though when he walks back into his apartment because she's like waiting at her door, and they walk inside at the same time.
Yeah, it's a very like sweet moment because you're seeing it from Owen's point of view. He walks up, and she's just waiting for him so she could say goodnight to him and say goodbye. And his smile, he's just so happy. They do a really good job of just making sure that we, the audience, know that Owen is just like has never gone through anything like this, and this is a huge, huge, huge deal for Owen, and he's super happy about this.
Right. This is a very important moment in Owen's life up until this point.
Yeah, and it needs to be an important moment, or else the rest of the movie kind of wouldn't fall into place the way it did.
Right. And so Abby gets back into her apartment, and it's very contrary to Owen's because Owen's on cloud nine. And meanwhile, in Abby's apartment, there's this very dark moment because, the man who we think is her father is packing a bag. He's getting ready for another trip to go get her some blood, it looks like. And we see him put this, like, jar of some unknown liquid, looks like water possibly, into a bag. Uh-huh. And they're kind of talking. Or no, actually, he's very, very somber, very broody. And she can tell that something's bothering him. So she walks up. And again, we get another one of those taboo moments because she like puts her hand on his arm. He turns around. She puts her hand on his face. And it's very hard to register what we're supposed to be getting from this moment. Do you remember that part?
Yes, I remember the part very vividly. So this is the opposite side of the argument we were having earlier. Not argument, but the debate about what is taboo about these relationships. So from the one side, we looked at it as Abby with Owen and the tabooness that comes with Abby being older than just a 12-year-old girl. And on this side, it's very more in your face because this is you can tell is maybe not a romantic relationship, but it is a relationship of that variety. It's not a friendship. She and this old man are together in some way. And we learn, I guess, a little bit more kind of indirectly throughout. Do you care if I talk about that? So it turns out, like, from what we can infer, she has been with him, this old man, who maybe since she was the same age as Owen, and maybe this is something that Owen's life path might mirror. And you have to kind of wonder, like, if you were 12 and started dating a 12-year-old and then you got old and she stayed 12 and she stayed someone you talked to, like, it's still not right. But, like, it's just weird to see. It's jarring to see because he's an old dude.
Because it raises questions, man. There's a lot of unanswered questions that come from these moments.
Which I'm glad they stayed unanswered. A lot of them.
Yes, because for the most part, you can just brush over them and go like, well, let's not think about it too hard, which is what we're doing. But still, it's awkward if you think about it too hard, which we're doing.
It is. It's very uncomfortable because then you have to think about all the little things that come with it. And I think in the other case, I was a lot more like, you know what? Like, I don't know. It's a real gray area. This is no. Once this dude like started growing chest on his hair, he should have been like, you know what?
Let's just get it out there, bro. It's pedo-y, okay? It comes off as pedo-y.
And the actor plays it so, like, he plays like this dude so well. Like, it's almost like if I was like his family member and he like came to Thanksgiving, I'd be like, dude, like, hey, how'd you get the kids? Like, make sure you got an eye on him. Just because of how well he plays this creepiness and the tenderness that he has with this girl, it gives you kind of chills.
Yeah, the actor is fucking glorious in this. And so she has her hand on his face, and all he says is, please don't see that boy again. Yes. So does that imply that he's jealous?
Yes, he's definitely jealous. He's definitely like, oh, this dude's coming in, stepping on my game over here, talking to my girl, which is awful to think about because he's really an old man.
But then, like, the one thing you can say about this movie, even though we're thinking about it, the movie never does anything to imply there's romance between these two. Like, it can be construed as just like a friendship.
Yeah, and even in that like scene, she touches his face and he just kind of is just like happy with the touch.
It could be construed as like a father-daughter relationship.
No, I don't think so.
I think so, because like as a dad, you know, I have a daughter, and for her to come for me like that wouldn't be outrageous in my head. To her to like just kind of rub my head for me if I was upset or some shit.
No, I mean, not in that context, but in the context of you being this girl with this girl since you're 12 and started in some weird.
Well, yeah, dude, knowing all that is weird, but like I said, you can get away with it just on the surface.
Yeah, and they were very intentional to be like, we're just not gonna go there.
Yeah, because they could have shown scenes of them like cuddling or something fucking weird, bro.
I mean, I'm just glad they didn't, but like, I'm almost better. It's better off that we don't know how it actually went down.
Like, we don't need to know the logistics. Like, we just know where we're at.
Yeah, all I know is, yeah, he's like, he had to have been like 20 and be like, you're not gonna get any older.
Yeah, not even that, bro. He would have been like 16. Like, so want to touch it? There would have been some weird, or hell, 14, bro.
Yeah, like it just doesn't. It's not. None of it's good.
No, there's no. So we move on. Abby kind of, when he says "don't see that boy again," Abby kind of like fades away. You could tell her energy changes, and she's kind of like, "Yeah,
I'm gonna see that boy again."
She doesn't even say it, but you could read it in her face.
Yeah, her eye said it.
And the old man kind of just dips out after that, right?
Yeah, she's like, "Are you going out?" And he says, do I have a choice?" And that's a really big thing. And then that's when the "don't see that boy again" kind of comes into being important, because he's like, "I'm gonna do this, but you got to do this for me." It's kind of like a trade-off.
Yeah.
And this next scene is my favorite whole scene in the whole movie. It's awesome.
So I'm gonna machine gun through this.
Go do it.
So, all right. So we see the old man stalking somebody again.
Uh-huh.
Another young boy,
yes.
Young man, adolescent, post-teenage, maybe teenage, maybe in high school, right?
High school. They're at the auditorium for something.
Yeah.
Or the gym for something.
So he sees this dude leave his car. He breaks into this dude's car and he lays down in the back seat. And he lays down in this dude's back seat. And you're like, okay, he's gonna do the same trick as before. No problem. It's gonna all go smoothly. But this time, the fucking guy stops because his boys call him for him. Second guy gets in the car. And the second that happens, the guy's wearing the trash bag on his face, but you gotta like be imagining under the trash bag, he has this like Pikachu, like, oh no face. Like,
Yeah.
and the dude's adjusting the seat, tosses a gym bag in the back seat. And then to make matters worse, not only are they just driving somewhere, they pull up to a gas station with the white fucking lights lighting up the entire car.
So bright.
He's no longer hidden by darkness. One of the dudes goes inside to pay the pump, and his boy is still in the passenger seat. And he reaches back to grab for his gym bag, I think, right? And he's kind of feeling around. And when he's feeling around, he looks back and he can see the old man's sneakers fucking chilling on the door.
Yes.
And from that point on, there's a scuffle. He gets up and he kind of has to try to strangle the kid at the last second, right?
Uh-huh.
And the kid that went inside to pump gas, he's about to come back out, and you're like, oh, he's going to save him. But then he gets distracted by his boys in Letterman's jackets.
Letterman's jackets.
Like 2 or 3 other guys, right?
Yeah, his homies.
And even then, at that point, once you see him bump into those guys, you're like, oh, they're about to fuck this old dude up. But it's funny because it's happening like through the gas station window. You can still see the old man fucking with this kid.
They had the struggle because like they're like really going at it because like this time the old man didn't have the jump.
No, he had to kind of it's an actual fight, low-key.
Yeah.
But he still wins though, man. And he makes the call on the field, which was actually pretty fucking smart to jump in the driver's seat like immediately. And he tries to reverse. Unfortunately, though, his vision's clouded or some shit.
I think it's just a panicky situation.
Yeah, because he's not shaking these dudes gassing it. They're keeping up with him like every step that he's driving away.
Because he's going backwards immediately. Like he can't take off forward for some reason. He just hits it in reverse and he like goes onto the main road. Going
and he
backwards.
tries to do like a Fast and the Furious maneuver, but he fails. He gets hit. He panics, like you said, keeps flooring it, and he accidentally drives off the road and flips the car down a hill. Mm-hmm. And so now he's like, it's a cool shot when it's fucking falling down the hill because you see like their bodies kind of being thrown all over the place while the camera's staying still inside the car. Uh-huh. It was a cool shot.
It was a very cool scene. I have a lot to say. I'm going to let you finish the whole scene and then I'm going to kind of help you go through it.
Yeah. Because then after that, right? So now there's this quiet moment where he's just laying in the car. And he sees that, you know, the dude's in the Letterman's jacket and the kid who's driving the car is coming down the hill, approaching him, right? Mm-hmm. He reaches into his sack. He pulls out that clear liquid, tosses it in his fucking face.
Oh.
He's burning. It's acid. You can tell right away. And that's pretty much that whole, like, scene.
This scene is one of the cooler scenes I've seen in a movie in a minute. Like, it is so, like I've talked about this whole podcast about how it's kind of drawn out, and I thought some parts are really slow. This part really did a good job of just having that monotony just be part of like what's like kind of freaking you out. So like that slowness of him getting in the car, the kid stopping really slowly to pick up his friend, and you just like have like these drawn out scenes where you see the old man and he's freaking out. Like he is like, how am I going to get out of this? And in your head, at this point, you've kind of put together that the person from the beginning of the movie that jumped out of the window is the old man. And I know, so some things about like time jumps is you kind of know like someone can't die until a certain point. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'm like, how is he going to get out to get to that part of the hospital? Because I'm thinking the movie's like only halfway done. We're going to have to get that hospital scene at the end. So I'm like, how is this dude going to get out of this situation? And I like think that he looks up and sees the handle. I think he's going to grab the handle and run. And I'm like, that's kind of a stupid idea though. So he does the right thing. He fights the kid, gets into the driver's seat. And you talk about it a little bit, how the camera work in this part is awesome because it's like kind of a mirror of what you see at the beginning when he kills the kid because they're showing it in the silhouette from behind. Mm-hmm. This one, the camera is looking like the Sonic commercials. You know, it's mounted right at the front. You see the panic in his face, like all over his face as he's like driving away from these kids. And then he just like does that wheelie and then hits the canyon and starts rolling down. It's just like such a fascinating scene because it's so slow. And in like an instant, it's just like a roller coaster ride, like literally down the side of a hill.
It's beautiful tension building and storytelling because without telling us anything.
Hardly any words are spoken at all in this.
Nothing, but you just understand the situation by what you're seeing. There could be no dialogue whatsoever. This could be a silent film. But you see a dude with a trash bag lying in someone's back seat. You know, he's obviously going to try to get the jump on somebody. Picks up his boy. Oh, fuck. They stop at a gas station. Oh, fuck. The dude runs into some of his boys inside the gas station. Oh, fuck.
And just so many layers of like craziness building up, and it's such like a cool juxtaposition of that first scene where it's like, okay, things are gonna go so smoothly. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get in the back seat, get the kill, go string him up, get the blood, easy peasy. And in this one, immediately things go wrong, and it's awesome. I just love this scene.
Yeah, and I never gathered that he was the guy from the beginning until he poured the acid on his face.
Really?
Yeah. When did you figure it out? Like immediately?
Well, when he said, "I'm sorry, Abby," in the note, and then you hear her name's Abby, I was like, okay, this guy's in.
I didn't, because I like had completely forgotten about the hospital scene. But when he poured acid on his face, I'm like, oh, that's who you are.
Yeah, crazy scene. And then we get to kind of like relive like that part of him going into the hospital again.
Yeah, because we get this pretty much the scene from the opening, but from Abby's POV.
Yes.
Because the next scene after this is Abby and Owen in their apartments, and she has like the radio on as they're doing the Morse code thing in bed, right?
Uh-huh.
And she hears on the radio, apparently news gets really around in this town.
Yeah.
Some guy stole somebody's car, threw acid in his face. And she just knows right away, fuck.
Yeah, she knows it's him. Like, it's immediately like obvious that this is the old man. So she goes to the hospital, right?
Yes, and she goes to the nurse at the front desk. She asks where the old man is at. And really, she just does that to get the information that he's on the 10th floor. That's all she cared about.
Yeah.
And so she dips out, and the nurse sees her barefoot, and she's kind of concerned about her, right? Mm-hmm. And she follows her out the doors. Abby's gone, and it's this cool, distant, long shot of the nurse standing outside the hospital, and Abby's climbing up the fucking walls of the building from far away.
It was another one of those CGI moments where it's like, she's moving weird.
I know, but this didn't bother me so much because it was further away. She's like a little dot, you know?
Yeah,
and
it wasn't like up close up.
It's not up close. From a distance, this works.
Okay.
And it's the dark scene. You can kind of barely make her out. It's like, oh, okay, I believe that. But it's when it's up close and you get full body shots that it bothers me.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was a cool shot. And after this moment is the point where the nurse at the front desk calls upstairs to the detective. And that's kind of where he's like, who's at the front desk? How little girl? Whose daughter? Whatever the fuck.
Yeah, so it's the exact same scene, but just from a different POV from the first scene of the movie.
Yes, and we see that while this is happening, what happened in the old man's fucking hospital room.
Yes.
Abby knocks on his window. He comes to the window, and is there a ton of dialogue here?
No, because he can't talk. So he comes to the window, and he takes his bandages off, and you see his face, and his face is just like, it's wrecked. It's fucked. It's bad.
It's all melted away.
Like, remember Two-Face and Batman? Worse than that.
It was both. It was both face.
It was both. It was no face.
Yeah, and Abby asks, "Can I come in?"
Uh-huh.
And he shakes his head no.
Because the detective's right outside.
Yeah. And so after this, doesn't he presents his neck to her. I didn't know that's what he was doing at first.
No, I thought he was
looking over the edge.
I thought he was going to look over the edge and just jump. But instead, he shows the neck, like giving it to her, like giving his blood to her because
it's kind of like, I'm going to die anyway, so just have a last meal.
Yeah, I think it's like kind of like the jig's up, like they caught me, like I have a messed up face, like I'm done. Like I'm going to jump out this window and you can have my blood before I do it. And it's a very, very, again, like kind of quasi-romantic scene where you're just like, is this supposed to be romantic?
Yeah.
This is weird.
I thought he was like giving her the okay to throw his ass out the window. Because he leaned far out that window.
Yeah, but like, why do you need help to jump out?
He didn't. She drinks his blood.
Yeah.
And then his body just kind of falls out the window. I don't know if he jumped or if he was just dead and he dropped.
Yeah, it happened pretty quickly.
And So then, the scene happens where the cop comes back into the room and he looks out the window and he stares at the body and he doesn't notice that Abby's right next to him, still standing at the fucking window.
Yeah, that's kind of cool because it's a callback to the first scene where he like does this and he just has no clue that she's watching him the whole time.
Mm-hmm. And this is one of the parts where it says owner instead of Owen. So the next shot is Abby knocking on Owen's bedroom window, and he's like half awake, and she like opens his window, and she's like, "Owen, can I come in?" And he's half awake, like, "Sure, why not? Go ahead, come in. Yeah, you're invited."
She's like, "Don't look at me.
Don't open your eyes though." And he's like, "No problem." And she starts taking her clothes off, right?
Yeah, she like takes all of her clothes off and then crawls into the sheets.
And she snuggles his ass, right? Or she just laying behind him?
She lays behind him. But he does somehow figure out, he's like, "You don't have any clothes on."
I was like, "What the fuck? You're naked."
You're naked.
Hey, it's very innocent, bro. Hey, you don't have any clothes on.
Why are your clothes on? It's like very weird, man. Like this scene like was awkward. I get what you mean by the awkwardness now. Like these parts were just like weird to watch. Like all those scenes like where he's interacting with her in like kind of a sexual ways.
Like some people might like be like, "Oh, okay, that's cute and innocent," but you know what I'm saying? If you think about it way too hard, like we're doing,
it's not so innocent.
It's a little weird.
She knows what works. She's preying on him.
Mm-hmm. And Owen asks her, he's like, "How'd you get up here?" She's like, "Oh, I flew." And he's like, "Huh." But that's all you can do, right? He's like, "Ah, good one." And I think it's at this part where Owen asks if she'll be his girlfriend. And again, she says she's not a girl. She's nothing.
Obvious. Like, Owen, pick up on some hints, bro.
Yeah.
Gotta pay attention.
And again, Owen gets hurt. And that's when she kind of starts trying to rationalize it. Like, what does going steady entail? Is anything going to change? And he's like, "Nope." And she's like, "All right, I'll be your girlfriend."
See, that also might kind of be a hint to the innocence of her and the old man's relationship.
Yeah.
If nothing changed, and that means...
So she didn't even understand the concept of a relationship at this point.
So, I don't know, yeah.
But that's, like, bro, there was TV, there was movies, like...
There's so much, like, she should have a wealth of knowledge. Like, I just don't know what the rules are, you know? Like, what are the rules? Like, how does her, like...
Dude, this old dude literally, like, not show her anything.
Like, he wasn't really... I guess he was kind of, like, listening to music, because there's that one scene, we didn't talk about it, where she wants to go do Morse code with the kid, and she's like, "Get out of the room." And
she's just like, "I need to be in here." And he's like, has a Walkman on or some shit, right? And he's kind of like, "Fuck me, right? Fuck me? Okay."
That scene's so funny because he's just so mad. He's like, "Whatever." He just like leaves.
And he can't do anything, bro. You just got to get punked by this little girl.
You have to, like, or she's going to probably kill you.
And so the next morning, Owen wakes to find a note on a candy wrapper that says, "I must be gone or stay and die," on top of the Romeo and Juliet book. I wonder if that's a quote from Romeo and Juliet.
I'm pretty sure it is. I thought that immediately. I was like, it must be.
Bro, I don't get the parallel between Romeo and Juliet in this.
There really is none.
Like, is she supposed to be like... Because I only think of Romeo and Juliet's that one scene where she's like on the balcony and he climbs up. So is she playing Romeo and he's supposed to be Juliet going up to his window?
No, that don't really make... I mean,
that's what I'm saying. It's a stretch, bro.
Like just random stuff that could have just been cut out of the movie, like I said.
Like, spoiler alert, if you know what Romeo and Juliet is, they fucking murked themselves at the end. And that doesn't happen in this movie.
This does not happen at this movie. They don't poison themselves at the end of the movie.
They're not part of, like, rival clans.
Very few parallels. It's just kind of like one of those over-the-head things like we were talking about where they're like, this is the point we're trying to make.
Yeah.
Jesus is watching this kid. And, oh, they're... two star-crossed lovers. Like, it's just like very obvious like little things that they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think there's, they did a lot of good things in this movie, but that connection just wasn't one of them for me.
Yeah, definitely. It was like, I mean, it's a good movie, but it's just like sometimes it's just a few too many of these like trying to be cute homages to other things, and it's just like doesn't play off that well, especially for me.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, it's kind of like it's not that deep.
It's not. It's really not.
But so, this day, Owen's gym teacher takes him on a field trip to play hockey on ice and ice skate on top of a lake.
Is the worst idea ever.
And once again, where in fucking New Mexico, bro, is it cold enough that a lake freezes?
We're in that not only is it cold enough that the lake freezes, that it's cold enough that you can bring a whole group of kids on there for a field trip that is literally has one, what are they called? What do they call someone you go to?
Chaperone.
Has one chaperone. Like, taking a whole group of kids with sticks. The first thing I thought when they showed the kids with the hockey stick, I was like, oh, Owen's about to get hit with the hockey stick. That was like my mind. I was like, they're about to beat him with these.
Yeah, because when they pull up to the lake, one of the first things that happens is the gym teacher says, "Hey guys, stay away from those fishing holes." And they do have them like coned up and like taped off, right?
Yeah. Then the
bully walks by him, and what does he tell him?
He's like, "You're going swimming today."
This fucking kid's a legend, bro.
Like, he's pretty much just like, I'm gonna murder you. Like,
he's like Jackie Chan, and he knows how to use his environments in the scene, dog. Like, if they were in a McDonald's, he's like, I'm going to put a McDouble in your ass today, Owen.
I'm gonna put it right in your mouth and punch you. Make you like, he was just like, you're going, like, which in effect is him saying, I'm going to like literally kill you today.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like put you in water and drown you. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, this kid is like so comically evil. It's ridiculous.
And I think Owen is so conditioned to this. I'm pretty sure he just brushes this off. He's like, oh, there's Billy doing what Billy does.
Doing Billy things.
Because Owen kind of wanders off to be on his own, which he does throughout the whole movie when he's in these like group scenes. You know, he's very much isolated from everybody.
He finds a place where it'd be easy to get like beat up without anyone seeing.
And
all the time.
He does. Yeah, and that's what Owen does in this situation. He finds a fucking fishing rod hidden in the snow.
So, this fishing rod, is it the same rod that the old man used to push the body down?
Ooh.
I think it was, because that like the way the guy pushes the body down, he's using like some random metal thing, and he just throws it down.
I didn't connect that at all, but you're probably right.
I think it is, which is kind of a weird connection. Doesn't really mean anything, but just a cool little note.
Nice little callback.
Yeah, nice little callback to the same rod.
And so the bullies decide that this is the time to approach Owen. And the bully tries to check him, right? He's like, what do you think you're going to do with that fishing rod? Because Owen kind of holds it in like a way, like if you'd hold a sword or some shit, right?
He was being threatening with the fishing rod, for sure.
Like, it gave him some type of confidence.
Yeah, it did. He had like a little bit of swagger behind it because he knew at least he had a weapon.
But the bully, being, you know, the world beater that he is, he's like, listen, I'm going to put that rod up your ass. And the teacher's like watching this from like a distance. He kind of sees this like standoffish, like old Western moment, right?
Yeah, and it looked like he's going to intervene for a second.
And so Owen just kind of, he takes the initiative. He doesn't react at this point. He does what he's got to do, and he whacks this kid in the side of the head with the fishing rod.
I was questioning really badly, like, what kind of fishing rod is this? That like usually I've seen like all these like metal ones that are they're kind of like the car antenna kind of feel like they're hollow. They don't like. I feel like if I hit someone with a fishing rod, it's not breaking skin like the way it did.
Nah, dude, that fishing rod was like Goku's fucking power pole from Dragon Ball Z, bro.
It just ripped through this kid's ear, dude. Like, no, like cut like butter.
Yeah, and then, you know, and the gym teacher at first goes like, "Hey!" But the second he does that, they're screaming all around him.
All around, every single kid in that fucking whole school was just like, ah!
Everybody panicked all at once. And we come to find out that the kids have discovered it was the jogger's body, right?
Yes.
So the guy that worked out, it was his body in the ice.
Because he got pushed into the thing by the old man.
Yes.
And so they choose to call the ambulance and stuff. And at the same time, you get a shot of Owen and the bully laying on the ground, and the kids be like, "Man, you went too far," and stuff like that. My problem with this scene Not the scene, just like the choice of like the townspeople. Why did they just like inert this body? Like they obviously took some time to cut into the ice and get like enough of like space to get the body out. They didn't make the kids go home, man. The kids like there's a scene where they're pulling the
So
body
are the kids
out.
in the background?
Yeah, they're pulling the body out with like some kind of like machinery. And it's coming up, and all these like 10 like or 30 little kids are just out there watching this body get unearthed. Like it just
And it looks just like that scene in Star Wars where Han Solo gets frozen in the fucking metal.
it's brutal.
And it's like he's just frozen in the block of ice, and you see his body like hanging down as it's coming up.
Yeah, it's like disgusting. Like they let these kids just sit here and watch it. Like,
And but yeah, so back to the bully getting hit in the fucking head though. Satisfying.
super satisfying.
No like ounce of remorse at all for this kid.
Yeah, the whole movie they're building up like, hey, don't feel bad for this dude. This dude sucks. Like he's
No
the
redeeming
worst dude
qualities.
ever. Nothing. Like he doesn't like smell a flower at some point and show any like sign of like being like a human being.
Well, I take it back. They try to humanize him after this.
Oh, you're right, a little bit.
But up until this point, fuck that kid.
Still, fuck that kid.
Yeah, yeah. And so Owen ends up in the principal's office with his mom. Mm-hmm. And pretty much they're coming at Owen as if he's the bad guy, which, I mean, I guess from their perspective he is. Because he has chosen not to tell anybody what's been happening.
And hit a kid with a metal rod and like cut through his ear. It was brutal. It was vicious injury.
It's very extreme. Then again, that's another question. Is it extreme or was it justified? Knowing that what they were probably going to do to him, I would think it's justified, I guess.
They're about to literally drown him, so yeah, it's justified. Like not play
Drown him, bro. They're about to freeze his fucking ass. Throw him in water, get hypothermia.
I think both.
Yeah.
He was gonna die.
I didn't have a problem with it. My moral compass would have been fine. And so later that night, a detective goes to Owen's apartment to ask the mom questions. And Owen has no idea what's going on, bro. Owen's in his own goddamn world.
No clue.
But he sees on his telescope, right, at this point, that the guy who was working out his apartment's getting, like, kind of raided by the cops. They're, like, looking through all of his shit.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a crime scene where they're just like trying to see what's going on. So I think he might have connected at this point that his neighbor is the one that got killed.
Yeah. But still, he's very slowly figuring out what's going on around him.
And at this point, he has no clue about Abby.
Nothing. And so the detective, after he talks to Owens, mom goes to Abby's apartment next door. And she doesn't open the door, right?
Right.
She's a ninja. He doesn't hear her, like, going up to the door or anything.
Yes.
And so the next day, Owen's in weightlifting class, and he has to hide from the bullies. And this is the part I was talking about where the bully gets humanized, because we see that the bully actually has an older brother. Mm-hmm. And the older brother pretty much picks on the bully. Because the bully's got his, like, ear taped up and shit from Owen whacking it.
Yeah, and he like immediately calls him cripple.
Calls him a cripple, and he does the whole thing. He calls him a little girl.
Yeah, that's like a very cool callback to like all the times he called Owen a little girl like right to his face.
So that's the trickle effect that this bully's older brother bullies him and calls him a little girl. The bully fucks with Owen. Owen does the thing, hey, little girl. It leaves a very lasting impression. And you would assume that this trickle effect, somebody did this to the bully's older brother probably.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they like do these in movies or like, oh, this don't feel bad or feel bad for the bully because he did this or this, and I'm not here for it. I'm not.
No, he's done too much at this point.
He's like been too evil. Like you can't just like be like people get bullied like that. It doesn't turn them into awful human beings, and this kid is just like the worst of the worst.
Yeah, and fucking what happens next? Oh yeah. So Owen goes to tell Abby that night. Mm-hmm. He's like, hey, I finally defended myself. I did it. And she actually kisses him on the cheek.
Oh, he's happy.
He's on cloud nine. And he does something really fucking weird here. Something I can't get behind. When he's like, hey, I want to show you something. And he takes her down to this, like, hangout, right? Mm-hmm. Where the older kids used to hang out, but now one of them moved away, so nobody goes there. Uh-huh. It looks like the basement from that 70s show. Like, it looks like a cool little spot.
Yeah, it looks like a cool little chill spot, little abandoned apartment.
He turns on some music, and Abby's like, what are we doing here? And Owen's like, close your eyes. Maybe this is a thing from the 80s or 90s because I've seen it in a couple other movies.
Yeah, this isn't like an uncommon thing. The little kids used to do this.
Like, we're going to make a blood pact.
And I think after the 90s when there was, a whole...
Everybody had AIDS, so everybody stopped that shit.
It's probably not a good thing to do.
So Owen cuts his hand, and she doesn't react until she sees it, right?
I think she immediately smells it.
Yeah, because she opens her eyes, and
she's like,
blood is dripping on the floor.
Uh-huh.
And once it falls on the floor, she just drops on the ground and starts licking his fucking blood off the floor.
It's a really cool CGI scene for them because she like has like the evil eyes, then her tongue's like super long and like super dark red and just like licks the blood up.
She goes very feral.
Yes. And she looks at, what does she say to him when she looks at him?
She just tells him to go away. She just says, go away.
Yes. And then she takes off.
And then she runs away because she has faith that Owen's not going to know what to do in the situation.
I wouldn't believe no one at all.
No. So she leaves, and this is the other part of corny CGI, where she jumps up the tree and climbs.
She like, it's a bizarre scene just in general.
Because she doesn't, it's like a tree with no leaves. There's no stealth to it really whatsoever. And it's not that high.
And I feel like they would have seen her going up the tree too. Like she's being loud going up the tree, like in her little feral state.
Yeah, so she's hiding in this tree. And the sex couple from earlier in the movie is having an argument. And the woman is like walking a dog in front of the guy. And you can hear the guy calling after her like, hey, Vanessa. And she just keeps walking, kind of like trying to be sassy. Unfortunately, she doesn't see Abby in the tree above her. Just fucking flies down like a hawk on top of her, right?
I guess why would you be looking up for a vampire to attack you? But
you never know.
You never know what's up in the trees.
And she does that thing again that she had done to the jogger from earlier, that whole spider crawl all over the woman's body.
Just mauling her.
Yeah, and she takes a bite out of her. But this time, her man shows up and kind of like just fights her off, right?
Just chases her away, so Abby just takes off.
And she doesn't finalize the kill like she did prior.
She did not snap the neck of this person like she did the first person she killed. No.
She had to just dip out.
Gotta go sometimes. You just murder someone in the middle of a patio, like you gotta run.
Yep. And so Owen returns home and tries to wake up his mom because, after what he's seen, he's obviously disturbed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty sad. This was a sad moment to me because he's like kind of really timid trying to wake her up, but she's got the bottle next to her, the wine glass.
Empty. Like just a complete, do you drink wine?
No.
So like me and my girl like to drink wine. So like something that like when you don't finish the wine, there's like a little like it kind of like solidifies in a weird way. Mm-hmm. So it like kind of like leaves like a little like stain on the bottom. I would say all this to say there's no red stain on the bottom of that cup. That cup got drinking quickly. So it was a really sad scene. Like she was tore up.
And so
I feel like the next part's even sadder though.
Yes, because so the mom won't wake up because she's passed out drunk.
Uh-huh.
So Owen decides, you know what, I'm gonna call my dad. And this is the first time we're hearing this dude's dad. And Owen, tells him like his opening line. The dad's like, "Hey, what's up, little buddy?" Owen's like, "Do you believe in evil?"
I'll be like, "Hell!" I'm like, "What the fuck?
What the fuck, dude?" And the dad's kind of like, "What are you talking about?" And like we said, the movie's been hinting this whole time about like Owen's mom kind of might be possibly a fanatic,
like a religious fanatic. Yes.
Yeah, she's hardcore into religion.
Uh-huh.
And so from the dad's perspective, he's kind of like, "Oh, she's telling you that I'm evil over there. Is that what she's telling you? She's talking to you about evil? I don't want her filling your head with all this blah, blah, blah. It's all bullshit, Owen. Put your mom on the phone." And he's going into this rant, and he's kind of stopped paying attention to Owen at this point.
Oh, 100%.
Like, Owen's got like tears coming down his face, and you could tell he's just, reaching for anybody that's gonna, comfort him at this moment. And it's just an incredibly sad scene, because you're really seeing at this point how alone he actually feels.
Yeah, and in a way, like, you want to be like mad the dad is just not like gonna answer that question for him, But also, like, dude, like, if your kid calls you in the middle of the night and, like, that's the first thing he says, it's, like, a very, very weird, jarring thing. And you got to think maybe it's this crazy alcoholic mom that is, like, a religious fanatic is filling his head with stuff. And so, like, in a way, like, a lot of Owen being on this island is just, like, not the fault of his own at all. It's the fault of his parents and their gripes with each other and whatever is going on, because we never really hear any of it or get to learn any of what their relationship was like, or even how his relationship with his dad was like. But it seems that, like, it's just like all of his pain is not, like, brought on by him. Like, sure, he's an awkward kid and, like, has, like, his little, like, issues, but life is just, like, around him is attacking him. He's not, like, a mean-hearted person. It's just, like, breaking him down.
Right. And also, wasn't it mentioned that this had only been, like, a thing for a few months?
Yeah, it's very early, and I think there's, like, 1 or 2 months.
So, again, bro, this brings it back. Like, yes, this is all sad. This is a very unfortunate moment. But how bad is it really?
Is it enough to drive you to do what you did?
Is it enough to justify, where this ends up?
I don't know. I mean, he's like a 12-year-old, but I don't think he's justified.
But then again, I mean, I'll say it at the end. Fuck it. So also another sad thing is at the end of this phone call, he tells his dad, "I love you," and his dad just hangs up the fucking phone.
I didn't even notice that, dude. That's awful.
I died, bro. Because listen, I've got a 7-year-old daughter, bro. I tell her I love you as many times a day as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, bro, a grown man, 28 years old, when I tell her I love you, if she doesn't say it back, Indian teardrop. I'm sad as fuck, dude.
It does. That'd be terrible, dude. Like,
I want my kid to know, bro, like, you're fucking loved, dude. Like, feel all the love. So to see this, as a parent, it was heartbreaking. Like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
It's like, all right, bye.
Yeah. No, it wasn't even a bye, dude.
Did you just hang up?
I love you. Click.
Rough.
So, after all this, Owen, of course, understandably goes to Abby's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Asks if he can come in. He makes her invite him in because that's Abby's thing. So he's like, oh, this is just what she does.
Yeah.
So he goes out of the way. It's very, like you said, pointed that he has to come in like that. And Owen asks Abby if she's a vampire. And all she says is, I need blood to live. So this movie kind of tried to take it from the, like, if this was a real thing, right? Like, she doesn't even want to be called a vampire.
Yeah, it really tries to, like, stay away from the cartoonishness of, like, what a vampire is and focus on the, I guess, the pain of what it would be like to have to be a vampire. Mm-hmm. And kind of, like, you, like, don't get to be a regular person. You have to kill. You can't make friends. Like,
she doesn't have a coffin. She lives in a crate. Or she stays in a crate when they travel.
Yeah, it's just, like, so much, like, playing on all those tropes and just showing how, like, rough her life would be, and just to be immortal with no end in sight, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely tries to show the more gritty, realistic version, if this was a thing, what it would be like.
Yeah, and even, like, that's evident in, like, the relationships you have. Like, you can't, like, they're always going to grow old and die, and you're just going to be stuck there.
Mm-hmm. And so after this, Owen asks, how old she is. And all she says is that she's been 12 for a really long time. And she admits that the old man wasn't her dad. And it's at this point Owen finds a picture of Abby and a little boy. And it's implied that this little boy was the old man that had been taking care of her. So like you said, they had been knowing each other 50 years plus, probably, from this picture, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And after this, I think it spoofs Owen.
Oh, I mean,
yeah, I'm not sure. Like, he gets like upset by that for some reason. The photo upsets him, and he tries to leave. And at first, Abby kind of gets in his way, and he's like, "Oh, you're not gonna let me leave now?" And she's kind of like, "You know what? You look like a little bitch right now. Get out of my face." She kind of steps aside.
And it's telling, like, the thing that bothers him is that she was, like, with another boy, not that she had just murdered this lady and, like, eaten her neck, and that she, like, he saw this violence and like that she's a literal vampire. It's like, oh, why are you talking to the other guy?
Is that what that was, you think? Because like I said, I didn't get that scene.
I think it was kind of him just like being like it's showing that he was just desensitized to the violence and the horror and like the horrible acts of it just because his life sucked.
Yeah, because for me, when I watched this, my initial impression was that maybe I'm giving Owen too much credit here, but for me, I read that maybe he started to realize that she might have been conditioning him to take this old man's place.
Oh, I think you're giving him way too much credit.
You think?
I don't think he knew that. I think he
because those are the dots in my head. It was like she's known this old dude since he was a little boy, kind of like how she knows me. So maybe she's thinking I'm gonna take care of her now, like this old man did.
I mean, I think that was implied to the audience, but I don't think at all that Owen had that like in his mind.
You think he was just straight up jealous of like seeing her with like another boy?
Yeah, he's like, who's this? You had another boyfriend before me?
Fuck is this?
I love his voice.
Bro, I'm telling you, you got me my nephew Jules, bro. He's this kid, like, he's like, I'm gonna make a burrito, okay?
I'm gonna make a burrito.
So the next scene, we're at the hospital. Now, this is my favorite scene of the movie.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yes, this is my favorite. Because the detective who... I didn't notice this until this moment I put in my notes. The detective that this movie's been highlighting, he looks like Flanders from fucking The Simpsons.
Okay, yeah, I can see it.
That's who I see. And he arrives at the room of the sex couple. The woman's in the hospital in the bed, right?
Uh-huh.
And he asks the man questions. They step out of the room. And as the guy talks to the detective, they don't see off camera in this dark room, the woman has started to like... She has the vampire face and she's gnawing at her own fucking arm.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to get any type of blood. She's in a feral state as Abby gets when she senses blood. And a nurse enters the room, doesn't really pay any mind to what the woman's doing. She kind of pulls the curtains open, and I didn't notice it was daytime. These curtains are fucking incredible.
Incredible curtains.
Pulls the curtains open, and the second she does... the woman that's been gnawing at her arm spontaneously combusts, bursts into fucking flames. And the nurse tries to grab her thinking she could do something. The nurse catches on fire also. And now we get the POV of the detective and this woman's, boyfriend or whatever approaching the hospital room as the fucking hospital bed is on fire. The nurse is on fire walking towards them. That was an incredible shot to me. And I remember from the trailer also, like, holy shit.
So the cool part about this shot to me is that they show the detective and the husband both talking outside of the room. Mm-hmm. And he's asking her questions about, is there a little girl? That just very, like, standard questions that is kind of like filler words. Mm-hmm. And so, like, what they're talking about isn't really important because we know all the information already. But what they're showing, like while they're showing those two talking, you see, if you look behind them into the door, you see kind of what's going on in the hospital bed and all this craziness is happening behind them. And they're just so like, they just don't know this going on at all. And I really like that part. Mm-hmm. The fire I thought was excessive. Like, I didn't know, like, if you just touched a burning vampire, you burst into flames as well.
Well, that was cool because, I mean, like, you've seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right?
Not a lot, but I've watched it.
They just turn to dust, just ash automatically. Yeah. There's no fire. Some movies, just the skin burns, you turn black. I liked how this movie did it, bro. It was just a straight inferno, dog.
It was just quick.
It's just a big lingering inferno. You didn't just melt away. You caught everything on fire.
Yeah, and there's no coming back from it either. Like some movies, it's like they like kind of like be like get burned up a little bit,
and they can roll out of the sun or some shit.
Yeah, like this was none of that.
No. When you get the sun touches you, it's game over.
It's done.
But no, that was, and the fire looked legit.
It was crazy. It was like they literally burned a hospital room.
It looked like they set a nurse and a woman on a bed on fire. It just looked cool. That was one of the more realistic portrayals of like someone burning I've seen.
It was crazy. It was a crazy scene.
And so now we go back to Owen's apartment, and he's got a note from his mom that says she's meeting a lawyer, and she left dinner in the oven. So Owen starts eating a pot pie.
Just by himself, yeah.
Yeah. Again, to show this motherfucker is just straight up on his own all the time.
And what does like "I'll be home later" mean? Like, because he's getting out of school like 3. Like, is that like 7, 8,
And it's
9?
definitively nighttime, right?
Like somehow it's like nighttime the whole movie. Like I don't know when if nighttime starts at like 3 p.m. in New Mexico somehow. Like that doesn't really make sense, but
And so Owen hears a knock on the door, and it's Abby. And she's like, "Can I come in?" And he's like, "What happens if I don't invite you in?" So she shows him. She walks into the room, shuts the door, and she kind of walks into his living room, and she looks okay. And, you know, it's kind of a drawn out moment. It's there's tension, kind of like, all right, nothing's happening. And then she starts to like convulse. And slowly convulse. And then she turns around and you see blood's like spilling from her hairline, which was strange. Maybe just blood vessels in general start leaking.
yeah, just her whole face starts to leak. There's like when she moves after, because in order to make her stop, he invites her in. He asks her, "Will you come in?" And then she stops bleeding.
And he hugs her again.
But as soon as you like see her move, like there's not just a little bit of blood. There's like a couple liters of blood under her. Like it's like a very like pointed like this would have killed her.
Mm-hmm.
So was there an instant? So she taps on the window and asks to be invited in. Does that happen at any other point in the movie?
Not really.
Does it really have any like significance later on?
Mm-mm.
Just random scene, but it was.
I
like,
mean, it was cool though, because it's kind of like showing why. Because, like I said, once again, I'm sorry to reference Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In that one, there's like an invisible glass wall. Like they can run at full speed into a door, and if they're not invited in, they're gonna hit an invisible force field that they can't penetrate.
So this is just vampire lore.
This is vampire lore in that show, so it's interesting to see how it's different. I've never seen this version of that. Like I've never seen like the vampire goes inside and what happens.
I guess I've not seen something where the vampires are restricted in what they can do, where they can go. Mm-hmm. So that was like to me just very like out of left field, and it didn't make sense to me.
I think that's all. Yeah. So you didn't know that part of vampire lore that they can't come inside.
Yeah, I didn't know that at all. So I was like, I was like, what the hell?
So no, that was a cool thing to see. And all right, so I'm gonna machine gun through this next little sequence.
Go ahead.
Because so after this, Abby gets to take a shower. Puts on Owen's mom's dress. Mm-hmm. Owen's playing music. They're kind of setting up this vibe. They're going to do something. Owen's mom shows up. She has to dip at the last second and sneaks out his window. They have this moment like staring at each other, at each other's windows. And later this night, after Owen's mom comes home and now she's passed out drunk again on the couch, Owen puts on his jacket and he's like, you know what? This bitch doesn't know where the fuck I'm going. Sneaks out the front door, and as he's going out the front door on the TV, it says like Channel 10, do you know where your children are?
Yeah, that's super
it's really ironic.
Too. Yeah.
As he's like leaving through the front door, and he goes to Abby's apartment, and he decides this is the night I'm gonna, just spend the night and hang out. Uh-huh. And I didn't notice that he was just in a room by himself. Or no, she's laying down next to him, right?
Yeah, for the whole first part of it, and then she like leaves another note.
Yeah, because they're laying down together, but he wakes up, I guess, in the morning. Uh-huh. And there's a note that says, I'm in the bathroom, don't come in, or something like that. But there was something nice in there. It wasn't so like abrupt. But that's just the gist of the note is like, hey, good morning, I'm in the restroom, don't come in. Mm-hmm. And there's a knock on the front door of Abby's apartment. And Owen is not quite as stealthy as Abby.
Not at all.
He walks up to the door, and it's the detective again. And he makes the floorboards creak. Detective hears the shit, immediately pulls out his gun. He knows the little girl is a thing, right? Because at this point, he's heard about a little girl, and he's looking for her. And
at this point, they said that a little girl attacked the lady that turned into a vampire and burst into flames. So he's thinking that something's just wrong with this little girl and that there's a little girl here.
Okay, I didn't connect that part because I was wondering why he reacted so aggressively to the fact that there might be a little girl in the apartment, but that's why, because he knew that the little girl had attacked the woman.
And I think he's also thinking cult, so he might think there's multiple people in there or something like that, so he's just not really sure what's going on.
Yeah. So he starts to kick the door open, and Owen freezes up, bro. I'm not gonna lie. As a kid in this situation, I'd be freaked out too.
I would have just, I don't know what I would have done.
Somebody's trying to kick your front door open and you're a child, like a grown man.
I really thought that Owen was going to get shot here for a second. Like for like 5 seconds, I was like, is he going to shoot Owen through the door? I was like, that'd be morbid.
That'd be dark.
Yeah.
But so the dude kicks the door open and Owen's just hiding behind a wall. Not really, like under a table kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I guess you're not really looking low for like little people.
No, and it's dark in the apartment. All the windows are all taped up with newspapers and shit.
Yeah, especially if you got the heater out, you're not looking low. Like you're looking like for like the big person to shoot.
Yeah. And so of course the detective finds the note that Abby left Owen, which says, "I'm in the bathroom," which from his perspective, bro, would be fucking terrifying. I'm in the bathroom, don't come in.
Oh man.
Like, your mind would have to be like, what the fuck is this?
Before we get to like the rest of this scene, can we just acknowledge that this detective was not that good of a detective?
No.
We can't?
I mean, he wasn't.
Like he was just like two people in this tiny little town get killed, like back to back, and he's just like just driving all slow to the hospital. He don't have any backup. He doesn't have like a PD, like anything. He didn't even have a badge. I didn't see the whole movie. Then like when you like go to the potential murderer's home, like you're not gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna call backup before I just mob up in here and kick the door open.
I'm gonna take or hell, couldn't he have just been like with the fucking complex, like, hey, the dude who lives in this apartment's dead, so let me in.
Yeah, anything. Like it was just like he wasn't doing a good job.
Because isn't that how they got into the guy who works out's place, I'm assuming? Why couldn't they do that with the old man's?
Did they know that the old man lived there for sure? Because I think the first time he heard that anyone lived there...
Oh, you're right, because he was just casually... He was going door to door is what we found out.
I think when he was talking to the sex couple guy, he was like, do you know this man? And he's like, oh yeah, he lived in the complex.
Okay. So he slowly found out that there was something up with that apartment.
Slowly.
And that comes back to like you saying, he's a shit detective.
Shit detective. There's always a really bad cop in horror movies that just like isn't holding down their side of the bargain.
Not at all. But so he realizes that somebody is in the restroom. Mm-hmm. And this is another tension building moment, bro. He really slowly walks down this hallway.
Oh man, you would think it was a mile long.
You would think. And he finally reaches it, opens the restroom door. It looks empty at first. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I'm like, oh, she's on the ceiling or something.
I thought so too.
And but come to find out, no. He pulls open the shower curtain, and there's a pile of blankets on the tub. Mm-hmm. And he pulls them back, and lo and behold, she's peacefully, beautifully asleep. Looks like a cute little girl. And that was cool. I'd never seen like that iteration. Like, you know, like I was saying, the coffin or crate or hanging from the ceiling. It's a very practical thing. Like, okay, that would make sense.
Yeah, just black the window, then put a whole bunch of blankets over you and make sure that you're good.
Yeah.
Like, not like I'm going to carry a coffin in this with me.
Yes, so it was a very practical spin on that trope.
Uh-huh.
But so, he sees this little girl and he's like, oh, this doesn't look dangerous. He kind of lets his guard down, right?
Oh, 100% let the guard down.
And he starts to pull the tape off the window to let some light in. Just the corner of it comes off and the light touches her leg and burns her leg, right? Just slightly. But at this moment, Owen shouts from the hall, like, what does he say? Just don't do it or something?
I don't know what he says no or something like that.
Yeah, and it, takes the cops' attention away from Abby. And then we get another one of those CGI moments. Jumps on him. The exact same fucking CGI moment.
Just crawls all over apart, yeah.
It's the very same thing, like just crawls all over the top part of his body as the guy struggles, jerky little awkward motions, and eats his ass in the restroom. In front of Owen, correct?
This scene, this part is crazy. So we get like a really, really, like it's the CGI thing happens. Abby kind of turns into like a crazy person. Like the way she does the herky jerkiness, and then it slows down where she's like gnawing on him on the floor, and the detective looks up at Owen and makes eye contact. And
he reaches out.
He reaches his one hand up, like, "Hey, I need your help. Like, do something. Like, what's going on?" He just like all the fear and terror in the world's on his face, and Owen, he starts reaching towards his hand is the way that it makes it look, and he's reaching and reaching. But instead, this little dude grabs the door and just closes it and lets Abby finish the job. And it is the first like moment where Owen is complicit, an accomplice in the murder.
Mm-hmm. And after this part, Abby comes out of the restroom and Owens kind of has his back to the door, right?
Yeah.
So you see her approach him from the restroom. And she comes up behind him and gives him like a hug from behind, right?
Yeah.
And then he turns around and looks at her and she kisses him on the lips with blood all over her face.
All over her face.
And you know that she kisses him on the lips because that's the only spot blood is at, is on his lips.
And it's super like important because I think it's in some way Abby grooming him to like come on as her next caretaker or the next person that she's with. But it's very much like Owen just like coming to grips with he could be her person and he could be like that in that life because he doesn't want to be home.
Yeah, but also it kind of crosses that line that we've been talking about where that relationship can never be romantic. She kissed him on the fucking lips, bro.
Yeah, and it made it seem like it just took away all the innocence from everything else too.
Yes, because at that moment it's like, okay, there's a kiss on the lips. How does this progress in his mind?
And it's at that point it's a little less like Owen and her are just like innocently becoming to like each other. It becomes more like she is pointedly doing things to rope him in and brainwash him.
Yes. Like it stops being a Beatles song about holding hands at this point.
Yeah, it becomes something much darker.
Yeah. But so after this though, but I don't know about the grooming thing, man, because she gets in a cab after this and dips.
Well, do you think that her plan was always so let's get through the rest of it because there's a lot of like stuff that we can question that just like kind of like you can't really separate a lot of like what happens in these last two scenes and even to the end into like,
well, this is like the last scene of the movie now. Well, because we end up getting a quick shot that Abby has stuffed the detective's body in a hole in the wall in the secret spot that Owen had taken her, that like basement little hangout room.
Mm-hmm.
And from here, we get, like I said, then after that, she gets in a cab and dips.
And she tells Owen she has to leave.
Yes. And so, Owen is in the playground at that courtyard during the day crying because it's a morning scene.
Uh-huh.
So then we get a shot of the night now, and Owen is at his after school weight thing, his weight class.
Is it though? Because people are swimming.
They're swimming, but it's nighttime.
It doesn't make sense why they're there.
Yes. I thought it was his weights class and he was giving him like some swimming lessons post fucking whatever.
I'm assuming that's what it was.
Because he's with his gym teacher and his teacher is like standing over him as he's kicking on the wall. So he's learning how to swim.
Okay. That makes sense. Then we'll go with that.
And while this is happening, we kind of see the bullies plus the older brother of the main bully. And they're like putting lighter fluid inside of a garbage can.
You're like, what are these damn kids up to now?
Yes. And so inside, one of his sidekicks alerts the gym teacher like, hey, there's a fire outside, bro. And the gym teacher, runs outside and he goes outside and sees this dumpster on fire. And the second he goes out the door, the bullies fucking bar the door shut or lock them or something, right?
Yeah, they're on one.
And then they pull a fire alarm, I'm assuming, right?
I don't think they pulled the fire alarm. I think they go straight into the room with the pool.
Oh, they just walk into the pool and tell everybody get the fuck out, right?
Like leave. Then they see Owen who starts to run back to the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And they get him by himself because he's just really good at finding places to get beat up.
Well, yeah, because he tries to go to his locker to get his stuff, which I mean he kind of has to, bro.
He was
it's
like
snowing outside.
Trunks.
He's in swim trunks and wet. And so, yeah, the bullies catch him though, and they drag his ass back to the pool. And the bully's older brother, as we find out, is even more sadistic than the bully himself.
Somehow.
Because he puts him in the water, right? He just tosses him in, and Owen makes his way back to the edge. And the bully tells him, all right, we're going to play a game. He's like, we're going to see if you can hold your breath for 3 minutes. And he's like, if you can hold your breath for 3 minutes, I'll just give you a nick. But if you don't, I'm going to I'm going to put a hole in your eye.
Yeah, he says he's going to stab his eye out. In 3 minutes underwater, bro.
That's death.
You're done.
Unless you're David Blaine or an Olympic swimmer. David Blaine did it for like 2 days.
2 days?
It's a real thing. Not 2 days, but it was like fucking 12 hours or something ridiculous, bro.
That's ridiculous. I'll believe it.
And so anyway, so he dunks his head. He's holding his hair under the water.
Uh-huh.
And we get this shot of Owen, and it looks like he starts to panic at about 20 seconds.
Immediately panics. Like, I would too. Like, you're about to get drowned.
And even the bully and the sidekicks are kind of like, all right, man, I think he's good. And he's kind of like telling him, just to shut up. And at this point, we get a POV of Owen under the water. Uh-huh. And you hear like glass break. You hear people screaming. And this was another cool shot in the movie.
Uh-huh.
And you just start seeing like limbs falling into the water, bro. You get this like, because it's water, the limbs are falling in slow-mo. Arm, leg, heads.
But then at the same time, the blood's expanding, and like it is just does a really cool effect to everything.
And it's just Owen's face, bro. And even though he was struggling earlier, man, he looks like he was fucking coasting through that 3 minutes at that point.
Somehow he was just like, I found my breath. I got it.
Yeah, because he's just kind of like very casual,
Just looking around, yeah.
And so then what happens after that? So he comes up from the water, and he's kind of like got his head at the edge, and you just see Abby's feet, right?
Yeah.
And do they show her, or do they just show him looking up?
I think they show her like briefly. Do they show her?
I think they just show her looking at his feet, and then the very next scene is them on the train.
Yes.
So he's on a train now with the crate, and you presume Abby's in the crate.
Yeah, it's pretty, like, it's not, like, immediately pointed, but, like, it's just, like, assumed.
You just figure. Well, you figure it because after he talks to the train guy, the ticket man, they do some knocks on the trunk.
Oh, yeah, at that point, it's, like, obvious because, like, he, like, knocks on the trunk, and then the trunk knocks back, like, Morse code back.
Yeah.
Which, if I was, like, like, on the train with him, or, like, also, like, an attendant on the train, I'd be like, hey, like, is someone in the crate? You have to tell me if someone's in the crate. Like,
right, a little kid with the crate is kind of like, this is a child-sized crate. Who the fuck's in the crate, bro? Is there an animal on this damn crate?
Yeah, like, what are you bringing in here, dude? Like, why are you by yourself? Like, a lot of questions.
Yeah, but that's the end of the movie.
Yes. So,
like I said, I guess, do we talk about everything I ran through?
Yeah, so, I don't know if we really got to, like, detail it, but, like, let's go high level first, and then if we need to talk about...
Yeah, so, like, my big thing I take away from all of that is just the scene where the bullies get fucking gutted in the goddamn pool, bro.
Yeah, it's... What about it?
Glorious.
Glorious?
Glorious. In terms of horror and, like, kill shots and gore. Like, how do you film 4 children dying in a gruesome way and make it beautiful and not exploitive?
I think the way they set up the scene really helped that, because... There's a difference between a bully who's like really mean and doing awful things and someone who plans this out. Like when they're doing like Ocean's 11 type like distractions to get the teacher out, clearing the pool, locking the door, and then the guy comes in and just like, I'm going to put you in the water for 3 minutes. It's planned out. It's like, it's not something that just like spontaneously happens. So at that point, he's like, okay, like these bullies deserve something. Do I feel bad for the 2 other kids? A little bit.
The accomplices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, was their crimes worthy of a death sentence? It's a stretch.
Those 2, no. But the brothers were probably gonna throw him in the ice pit, and he's gonna die. And the second brother tried to drown him, like.
And those kids did have every chance to, like, even if you're not going to step in, they could have stopped hanging out with that fucking kid.
The accomplices?
Yeah, the accomplices, they had their chances to get out. Like multiple.
Yeah, they deserve to die, but I get you.
Yeah.
It was awesome, like, just like when you see the head come like into the water right above Owen, you're just like, oh, that's just a head.
And that's a callback to when she said, what happened, or when he said, what happens if I hit hard back and they keep coming? And then she says, then I'll come. And she did. And it was badass.
It was super badass. I
And
wish
they
we got
didn't
to see
show
it.
anything, bro. But like the way the reveal, even without them showing it, the glass breaking, the kids screaming through water, and just fucking body parts falling in the water, like it was perfect.
So I have a question about that. Do you think that she like heard, like she had like a sixth sense and like heard him like,
Or was she
struggling?
following him, right?
Yeah.
So what were we talking about? We were talking about the bully's death scene. Did we get to the end of that pretty much?
Yeah, we talked about the whole scene. What we were talking about right now was the what are the vampire rules? Because we didn't know like when she came back, like
Oh yeah,
she,
if she was following him or if she could hear him.
she had the sixth sense about it.
I would lean more towards the sixth sense because I would like to assume that she would have jumped in a lot quicker.
That's true, yeah.
She wouldn't have let, because he was under that water for a good minute before she even popped in.
So it just took her a second to fly there?
Yeah. So she could probably sense that he was in danger.
Okay. That's one of the few questions I had with that. But I guess after that, like, I'm thinking like high level. Like what like questions are you left with at that point?
The biggest question that loomed with me after I saw this. So we said that he was humanizing her, correct?
Yeah.
She was starting to get more warm to him.
Potentially.
Or is this creature just parasitic? And it knew what to do to get him to take care of it, to become its host.
There is so many like little instances where you think that maybe she's like kind of warming up and kind of coming around. But I feel like a lot of what we see is from the perspective of Owen. So he's seeing her like look at him in a way. Like we don't really see her like fondly looking over at Owen, just like without him being like engaged and looking and that kind of stuff. Like we see her wanting to talk to him through the Morse code through the wall, but is she just like doing that to gain favor with him, or is she actually, we don't see an actual moment where she's just like, even if there was a scene where she was just like looking at a picture of Owen or like admiring him from afar, I'd be a little more inclined to say that she wasn't just grooming him.
You think she wasn't just grooming him?
I said I'd be more inclined to say she wasn't if we got more of her like liking him in that way, other than I feel like a lot of what she did is very reactive to how he responded. So maybe I think she was just trying to lock him up.
Yeah, I think so too, man. Like, unfortunately for Owen, I don't think that she had I don't think it was possible for her. I mean, just the way she reacted to blood and stuff, bro, she's looking at people like they're just bags of blood walking around. But she also has the sense to know, I need someone to watch me in the day.
Yeah, I think she locked him up. But also, like, I guess, like, she's 12, so she goes for a 12-year-old. Like, I feel like if you want, like, someone, like, a caretaker, you could have found someone, like, more, like, you know, caretaker-y vibes than Owen.
Well, here's a part of that, though. So, she, whenever she's advising him how to handle the situation with the bullies, like, one could say that's just life advice. But also, maybe she knows that if this dude's going to be my caretaker, he needs to have a thicker spine.
And he's going to have to do some murder later on.
Yes, so that was her kind of like, maybe that's how she coached the old man into fucking murking people for him.
It was just slowly, but how, like, it's just so many questions, like, regarding, like, their future, too, because also you can say if she was really, like, in love with him in this way, or, like, wanted to be his partner, that she would bite him and let him become a vampire as well, so they can live in this same state for forever.
I think that would have been a better direction to go. But then again, I mean, for what this movie was trying to portray, like that whole thing of like, she needed that caretaker who's going to be around for 50 plus years.
And also maybe it is more satisfying for her to see that the people she loves can die than be tormented through what she's going through.
Possibly, man. But like I said, I think my theory is that she's purely parasitic.
I mean,
She's only looking for someone to, like a tool.
I think so too. I think she saw that the old man is
Because the old man's the perfect example of where their relationship was going to end up.
he was at the end of his run. Like it was just like, and there's no like avoiding it too. Like you can't just stay with somebody and not, like have to kill and have to go through this weirdness where you're like an old man and she's a little girl.
Because if you think about it, did she really show any type of really crazy remorse for when he got in that situation and when he died? Because you could say that's what her going to the hospital was, but that might have been just more of her tying up a loose end.
That's true too. Because she really, after she sucked his blood, that was
kind of it.
It was just like, oh, he's gone. Or maybe she's done this so many times that it isn't like it's just another one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's my main takeaway I got from this movie. Like, I feel like we did a pretty good job of like breaking everything down throughout it. So what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was really a complex film, but I also thought it was a boring movie. In a lot of ways, like there's a lot of parts where it was just like, okay, all right, I get it. Like I just like it bored me in a way that I like knew like it's one of those things like we were like watching like this is good. I know this is good. Like it's artistic. Everything kind of makes sense. All the flows make sense. Everything just is like beautifully shot. But for some reason, it just kind of bored me, honestly.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of like big moments.
No, that's why I really like those scenes with the murder. And it's funny because so many of the scenes with like the old man where he was murdering people were so much funner to me to watch than the vampire scenes.
Well, yeah, because a lot of the movie is character development of Owen by himself and then his relationship with Abby. So if you're not watching Owen being alone and being weird or getting bullied, then you're seeing him, kind of flirting around with Abby.
Or just being by himself doing nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's kind of what makes it, I feel, a good movie. But you're right. It's definitely not a party movie.
Not at all. It's not like one of those scary movies you can just throw on with people over.
Like, it's not a quote-unquote fun movie.
It's not. It's really not. It's uncomfortable. It's awkward. It just makes you think about all these nuanced questions about what being a vampire would be.
Mm-hmm. For me, I remember the movie fondly. But like I said, I think that's because I like those, like, coming-of-age movies. Coming-of-age movies I got a soft spot for. Like, I like it reminds like The Sandlot, bro. You're watching kids kind of in their own little world.
Uh-huh.
And then you kind of tack on, like, that whole horror aspect to it. So it's interesting to me.
Yeah, and I like that, and I really like the period piece part of it.
Yeah.
When they're not ramming Ronald Reagan on, like, a reflection next to the character.
Yeah.
But the period piece aspect of it is really cool, and I thought it was a really well done, good movie that had a lot of boring parts.
Mm-hmm. And as a vampire movie, pretty good.
Yeah.
Considering, like I said, generally I don't care for vampire movies that aren't action movies.
I think it's because a lot of it was just not focused on a group of vampires. There's one vampire and a lot of real human characters around it that were vulnerable and could also go different ways.
It's a very unique story.
Yeah, it was very unique, very original. Oh, good movie.
Yeah. All right, so if you were to rate it, what would you give it? Scale of 1 to 6.
So we're doing the scary, is that the scary rating?
No, this is just in general. Your opinion of the movie, instead of popcorn bags, I do the 1 to 6 inches.
Okay. For the taco size. Gotcha.
Yeah.
We had to talk about it. I would give it, honestly, 3. It was a good movie that I wouldn't want to watch again necessarily.
You wouldn't run it back.
I wouldn't run it back. But I wouldn't say I was like, I didn't like it while I watched it or I wanted to turn it off at any point.
I feel that. I think that because it's a vampire movie and I didn't not like it, I got to go 4.
So you think like the degree of difficulty like helps?
Yes, because like I said, in the era of Twilight that we're in, to make a passable vampire movie, bro, is talent.
It is.
So, like I said, I go 4. Yeah, though, bro. I mean, that was pretty much let me in.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we did a good job. We kind of tied up everything, I think.
Think throughout it. Not a whole much more to add. So I'm gonna go ahead and just wrap this up.
Okay.
It's cool with you.
Let's do it.
Make sure you guys check out the Facebook page, the Instagram, Death Taco Podcast. This is all of it. This is also available in audio form on Spotify, Apple Music, Google, whatever you want to look at it on. With that being said, thank you, Nick, for being here with me.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thanks for having
whoever's
me on.
Thank you, watching or listening. This is the Death Taco Podcast.